The descent hits a massive turning point right as the party stumbles onto the 98th floor of the labyrinth. Red-haired and soaked to the bone, she wheezes through the downpour, trying to claw back her breath while the battlefield rages around her. She stares up in pure terror as Wim Strauss stands on top of a hulking, armored beast, towering over a battlefield, drowned in mud and rain. A chilling, sinister laugh rips through the thunderstorm as a hidden figure lurks in the shadows, grinning like they're enjoying every second. The story jumps back a few months to when the party was sprinting through stone-carved halls inside the labyrinth. Wim shakes with his dagger out, warning that if you chase greed instead of backing off when a floor boss is near, death is waiting for you. No exceptions. The once proud members of Dragon's Wings are sprawled, blood-soaked and wrecked, dragging themselves across the cold stone floor after a brutal, devastating fight. Shock slams into Wim as he stares at the wreckage, unable to accept the nightmare that's unfolding at his feet. With hope hanging by a thread, he pleads praying his comrades are still alive. Even after those brutal, horrific wounds, a thunderous crash erupts as the massive creature stomps in right behind the startled adventurer. A colossal reptilian beast, jagged scales blazing and rows of razor-sharp teeth bared, looms over the lone survivor like a living nightmare. The beast let out a deep, guttural growl, and its hunting eye snapped onto its next victim. Locked in the nightmare's gaze, Wim finally snaps and realizes just how crushing the floor boss's true power really is. With one explosive strike, the monster slams through the team and wipes the whole party off their feet like ragdolls. Panicked and drenched in sweat, Wim realizes one brutal strike has knocked everyone out, and he scrambles like crazy, hunting desperately for any escape route. He pits impossible odds against himself, either buy time for a rescue or haul 3 unconscious allies to safety, and when the math finally hits, he realizes both choices spell suicide. With dread tightening his grip, Wim steels himself and realizes there's just one last desperate move. He squares up to the monster and faces it head-on. Muttering the words of his secret technique, he gets ready to flip his rare switch, Puppin's Spieler, his puppeteer power. For one sickening second, the idea of ditching the others and slipping away alone flashes through his head. Then it hits him how Dragon's Wings welcomed him in, and how those members forged precious bonds with him that lasted through countless days. Somewhere in the dark, a wicked presence keeps laughing, sneering at every new twist of the tragedy as it unfolds. When the beast rips the air with a deafening roar, Wim's chest swells with raw pride for standing his ground and fighting back in the biggest moment of his life. The memory slips away into the soft lull of the Dragon's Wings at that party house where they once huddled together, safe and sound. Right now, a jittery Wim hovers near his teammates inside their home, and he can practically feel the room's tense, heavy energy pressing down on everyone. Confusion crashes over him as the Wim stammers can't make sense of the sudden, bone-chilling change in his friend's behavior. His heart drops the second a sudden sharp movement snaps into view and catches him totally off guard. With a gasp, he can't believe his eyes. His own leader raises a heavy blade straight to his throat, staring him down with ice-cold, deadly intent. Kronos, leader of Dragon's Wings, stares down with pure contempt and snarls at Wim to get lost, like he's nothing but scum. Meech Meles and Priest Nikur toss him zero support, sneering that it's obvious he no longer deserves their elite party. They sneer at his heroic act, brushing off how he actually finished the boss for real as nothing but dumb luck. Kronos sneers at Wim, waves off his work like it doesn't matter, then swears it was his own magic blade and Meles' magic that truly pinned the boss in a corner. Reeling from that brutal cold betrayal, Wim stammers couldn't believe their bond had been turned inside out. And for real, he still thought the victory was something they'd earned together as one team. A brutal memory crashes back. Wim drops to his knees, wrecked by the defeated beast, still clinging to the hope that his comrades will finally look at him and praise him. The party turns on him with vicious venom, snapping that his buffs didn't cut it because of him. They claim the creature wiped them out. Harsh accusations slammed into the young man as his former friends, stone-faced, declared that every single failure inside the labyrinth was his alone. A brutal realization slams into Wim. His teammates have hated him from day one, and it's been sitting there the whole time. Wim's face twists in silent agony as the brutal weight of their total rejection crushes his spirit. Win panics, desperate to save his life, and blurts out an apology for every mistake he can't even understand, utterly confused, but begging anyway. He begs them to let him stay, because as a nobody grantor, no other guild would ever hire him for an expedition. Sweat poured down his face as he begged, pleading to stay in the only place he'd ever truly felt like he belonged. Kronos smirks with icy calm, then snaps into a brutal game to crush fate's whims for good. The leader yanks his sword free and taunts him with a condition that sounds impossible. Whim has to beat him in a fight just to win his spot and stay in the party. Win knows in his bones that a non-combatant like him can't stand a snowball's chance against a seasoned warrior like Kronos. Hysterical laughter bursts out of him when he realizes he'll need a full-on miracle just to make it through this encounter alive. Fuming over the answer, Kronos explodes, demanding to know what on earth Whim finds funny in a situation this dire. Just as Whim tries to react, Kronos rockets forward and slams into him, clawing his throat and yanking him clean off his feet. The leader spits savage insults at his old comrade, calling him a worthless scumbag who can only slap on beginner-level support buffs. Kronos roars that a lowlife like Whim must never, ever defy the party leader's absolute command. Each time the physical abuse keeps pounding on, he gasps for air, begging inside, but his pleas hit nothing. Not a single ear. With a thunderous slam, Kronos crashes into the defenseless grantor, hurls him aside like garbage, and roars that he's nothing but a weakling. Kronos clenches his fist, rage ripping through him, because he can't stand the idea that someone so pathetic could ever be blamed or credited with a boss kill. Whim crumples to the floor, choking on a violent cough, bitter as hell that he risked everything for people who look at him with nothing but contempt. His hand shakes against the floorboards as the memory hits how badly he wanted to pay back the dragon's kindness for taking him in when he was nothing but an odd job worker. Tears finally burst free as the brutal truth of being left behind smashes straight through his shattered heart. A chilling silence drops the moment a shadow swallows the room. Then, boom! A mysterious pair of high-heeled boots steps out of the doorway like it owns the place. Whim yanked his gaze up from the floor, blinded by blood and tears, and strained to figure out who just showed up. Wincing through raw agony, he barely manages to mutter, "Who the hell are you standing over me like this?" Kronos steps up and declares the woman is Sophia, then drops the bombshell that she's already been picked to join the party in Whimstead. Sophia lowers her head in silence as Kronos brags that his superior skills will easily wipe out the whole left side after Whim's gone. Standing over his former friend, Kronos spits out one last bone-chilling order. Whim is to leave now and never let him have to say it again. Kronos slams in the last crushing hit, announcing Dragon's wings don't need Whim anymore, then barks an order for him to get out right now. A brutal close-up catches Whim's face pure terror, total shock, right as betrayal hits and ice-cold sweat pours down him. The scene snaps to an ancient, sprawling city packed wall to wall with towering buildings, and a massive clock tower shoots up into the clouds. Up above the roaring streets, birds wheel around the great clock tower's ornate spire, turning it into the adventurer's hub's unmistakable landmark. This labyrinth of a city was built from the dreams and burning hopes of young adventurers, all hunting fortune in the dark depths. Merchants rake in a fortune selling rare hauls like the high fins ripped from the 35th floor, proof that this city was built on whatever the labyrinth decides to give up. Market stalls teem with magic stones hauled straight from the 60th floor, along with top-tier first-class goods traded like priceless treasures everyone would kill to get. Once you step past the city gates, the world opens up endless uncharted ground, stuffed with rare monster materials and secret locations you'll never find anywhere up on the surface. In this world, who you are is decided by what you've dared to accomplish, and the bonds you forge with people who've risked death side by side are said to hit harder than any family tie. Folks daring enough to risk their lives plunging into a labyrinth's deadly depths are the ones everyone recognizes and honors as true adventurers. Cast out and alone, Whim stumbles through the streets in total despair, under his breath begging to die. He's terrified that even if the adventurer's guilt can score him jobs, no party will ever touch a grantor because that role is hated everywhere. With the twig in front of him, he debates going solo to hunt little prey or sinking his pride and joining a pitiful F-rank party because deep down, he's terrified he's way overvaluing himself. Loud laughter and clinking glasses spill out of the inn, and it only makes Wim's miserable mood hit harder. Wim stares at the handful of weak coins left in his palm, and the truth hits hard after the exile. That's all he has left. Deciding that this crushing sorrow demanded a drink to drown the pain, he gets ready to step into the loud, lively place. A bell clangs the moment he shoves the door open, and a bright, cheerful voice rushes in with a warm welcome. A cheerful waitress with a great smile. Greta Ann spies him at once, beams so hard it lights up the room, and shouts his name like they're already friends. Wim shoots Greta Ann a respectful nod as she says she's already gotten the latest word about his party. She beams and congratulates them on the spot, because she's heard the rumor Dragon's Wings just wrecked the floor boss. The other patrons jump in, jeering him as the world #1, and then they pester him like, "So are you really going to treat the whole house to celebrate?" Greta Sand is certain that once the guild officially reviews the boss kill site, his party will get promoted to the air rank right around the corner. With zero mood for celebration, Wim quietly waves it off, then just orders his beer and his usual sausage plate, like it's the only thing that matters. He slumps alone at the bar, digs in with hungry focus, and the knife slicing through sausage gets swallowed by the loud chatter from all around. He takes a bite and grimaces. Everything tastes bitter and wrong, like his heavy heart is sabotaging his appetite. Suddenly, that familiar creepy fooey hi-hi laugh bursts out of his throat and he jerks back, shock hitting hard as he snaps his hand over his mouth. He still aches when he remembers Kronos always snapping at him to stop laughing like that, because it was downright disgusting. It hits him like lightning. He's done with Dragon's Wings, and at last, those suffocating rules don't control his life anymore. He scans the other adventurers huddled in loud little groups, and it hits him hard once his family cast him aside. He's stranded in a sea of loneliness. Wim stares back at the celebrations they used to throw and even admits to himself that he was never really good at jumping into their conversations. Wim stared at his empty plate, and old bittersweet memories of the party hit him all at once. Then he admitted under his breath that it really was fun. Reality slams into him as he realizes he's got no home left and nowhere he truly belongs. Greta Ann watches him from across the bar, her face shining with quiet sympathy for the shattered adventurer. That sharp, sudden doorbell blasts through Wim's heavy depression, and then a familiar voice yells his name, ripping him out of his slump. In pure disbelief, a disheveled Heidi Marie stumbles into the inn doorway, wheezing and panting, and he snaps, demanding to know why she's tracked him here. A wave of heartbreak sweeps across the red-haired mage's face as she stares at Wim, her eyes screaming with regret she can't put into words. Then the story swings to the towering, ornate domes of the Adventure Guild headquarters, looming over the whole city like they own the sky. Inside the master's office, an official burst in with a formal report, detailing the exam results of the giant crocodile carcass they wiped out on the 98th floor. The guildmaster leans in, ears sharp for the party's story of teamwork, then demands the investigator's honest verdict on how that fight really went. He starts digging into whether the dragon's official wings report matches the real clues they found right there at the scene. When they finally inspect the beast's corpse, they realize most of the damage, including the fatal strike, came from nothing fancy, a plain machete. The examiner points out that sure, magic and enchanted swords can carve marks into the beast, but they still can't land real damage on that high-level monster. The investigation hits a wild turning point. When they finally confirm the truth, Wim Strauss was the only one in the party holding a machete. The official decides, against all odds, that this harmless grantor just walked up and wiped out the floor boss by himself purely on his own strength. A shadowy figure leans over a razor-detailed city map, eyes locked on one pinpointed spot buried deep inside the maze of streets. Baffled, the girl stares at Wim's tracker crest and can't wrap her head around it. It's just vanished from the dragon's wings, headquarters, and landed in some run-down cheap inn. She tears through her gear, muttering under her breath as she hunts for her wiretap device because she's not done gathering the next piece of intel. A sharp ping slices through the air, and she locks onto her target, pinning the transmission's exact source. Through the device, she suddenly catches Kronos' cruel voice as he snarls at Wim. "Get lost, scum." And it slams her worst fears into place. Rage burning through her, she clenches her fist and swears revenge on Kronos for daring to talk to her beloved Wim like that. Desperation claws at her as she sprints toward the battered inn, shouting his name at the towering wooden walls the moment she gets close. Inside the tavern, the door explodes open, and a panting girl tumbles in like a disaster. Every startled patron's eyes snap to her at once. Wim whips around in shock, eyes going wide as Hyde Mary bursts into the doorway breathing hard, cheeks blazing red from the sprint. Greta Sand flashes a knowing smile at the newcomer, but Wim's still frozen in shock, unable to even comprehend how Hyde Mary just suddenly showed up. With a wicked grin, the waitress needles Mary's hiding spot, yells for stalker S. John, and practically delights in how flustered the poor girl gets. Hyde Mary shoots back immediately, insisting her name doesn't even have an S, and then fires off a furious jab at Greta, calling her a cowgirl. The two women trade savage insults while Hyde Mary chants, "Drop dead," over and over, and Greta smirks, shamelessly bouncing her chest with that ridiculous boing sound effect. Hyde Mary tunes out the chatter, snaps her focus back to Wim, and insists, "I'm not here to brawl the waitress, I'm focused on you." She slides up to his table, her face tight with worry, and asks if he's all right yet. Wim just stammers, completely lost in confusion. Wim figures the firing rumor has already hit the streets, and he shoots her a jittery question, "Are you here because of dragon's wings?" Hyde Mary swears she hasn't heard a single rumor, and that leaves Wim totally baffled. How does she know something's wrong if it isn't from gossip? She casually drops the bomb that she knows everything about him, and that one sentence makes her sudden arrival feel even more impossible to explain. Hyde Mary brushes it off like it's nothing, just because they're from the same village, but Wim's eyes scream terror at what her knowing might mean. A flashback bubble pops up, showing young Wim finally catching how her explanation actually clicks, and his suspicion loosens just a little. Still, Wim can't shake the confusion. He stares at her and wonders what on earth happened to make her bolt over, scratching his head in total bewilderment. Mary and Greta's hid, and I pressed him for answers. Something awful had to have happened, because the look on his face screamed total defeat. Wim fumbles for words, rubbing the back of his neck in pure awkward panic as he braces to unleash the bombshell. He finally blurted out the truth to the whole room and said it straight. He'd been fired from Dragon's Winks. The tavern explodes with shock. Patrons slam the brakes mid-bite as his confession crashes into the room. An adventurer slams his hand on the table and demands answers. Why was Wim fired when their party was one step away from an A-rank promotion? The patrons trade whispers with each other. Sure, they recognize the other three, but everyone knows Wim's reputation is all chores and nothing more. Wim tells them he barely got any time to pack, yet he still left all the necessary paperwork behind for them. He shrugs off his own importance, swearing anyone could do his job, and calling it a relief that his replacement Sophia looks wildly capable. As Wim points out the gorgeous elf who's taken his spot in the party, Hyde Mary's eyes snap to her Sophia. Greta clicks her tongue in disgust and snaps that Kronos is a damn womanizer, because the second he dumps a party member, he swaps in some brand new girl. Hyde. Mary nods with a heavy look, quietly admitting the rumors about the leader's behavior are probably dead on. Wim slumps his head and lets out a heavy sigh, crushed by the fact that he couldn't earn enough trust to stay in the party. A small, nervous, barely there laugh slips out of Wim's mouth as he scrambles to dodge the crushing tension. He snaps his hand over his mouth in pure panic, realizing he's fallen right back into the exact habit Kronos despised. Hyde Mary leans in with a gentle grin and taps his own point. He still hasn't fixed that weird laugh of his. Wim shoots her a guilty look and blurts out, "Does this gross you out?" the same question his old leader once demanded. Hyde Mary gently shakes her head and tells him, straight up, that it doesn't disgust her one bit. She props her chin in her hand and blurts out that she's got a soft spot for the way he laughs because somehow it feels like him. Caught off guard by the compliment, Wim blurts that she shouldn't say stuff like that, or he'll start thinking the wrong thing. Hyde. Mary locks eyes with him, smiles with pure affection, and calmly tells him she doesn't care if he's getting the wrong idea. Steam practically blasts out of Wim's ears as he wildly flaps his hands, pleading with her to stop the teasing right now. The room goes deadly quiet as Wim struggles to steady himself after that sudden, romantic sucker punch. Wim sinks back into the spotlight, glares at his drink, and finally admits the truth. He still can't wrap his head around why he got fired. Hyde Marie takes a casual sip, then drops the obvious truth like it's nothing. She beat the floor boss all by herself. Wim snaps a blink, totally thrown off, and asks what she's talking about with that crazy, absurd claim. She slams her glass on the table and declares that Dragon's other wings couldn't finish off the boss, so only him remains. Panicking, Wim flails his hands and insists it was all just a misunderstanding, like he didn't land that lucky finishing blow. He insists that the win didn't come out of nowhere. Everyone in the party stacked the damage, and that total is what sealed it. Hidamari snaps in, cutting him off cold, claiming the floor boss took 0 damage from anyone at all, and that it was only Wim who did anything. Wim lets out a shaky laugh, thinking Hidamari is totally overrating him and his pathetic skills as a support mage. He swears he was only desperate to not be a burden, while the others flexed their unbelievable talents. He rubs his neck and blurts out, "Why does she think I'm so amazing?" Because, to him, he's nothing but a failure. Mary's cheeks light up. She shoots a glance aside, and she fumbles for the right words because her faith in him is unshakable. Greta slams into the moment, her face full of worry, and snaps to the other side of the counter to address the pain. The waitress leans in and says she's lived in this city her whole life, and in all that time she's never once heard of anyone taking on a floor boss alone. She snaps at Hidamari to quit her creepy habit of spinning weird little stories just to flatter the thing she's been stalking. Greta snaps at her for crossing the line, but Hidamari shoots back that she's telling the truth because she secretly wiretapped the whole battle. The tavern keeps roaring around them, but Hidamari's shocking revelation sits heavy in the air. Wim glares at his cup and mutters that the truth behind his firing is plain. Nobody trusted him. Hide. Mary slams her palm onto the table with a brutal thud, her expression twisted in pure annoyance. She snaps at Wim, yelling for him to stop his pathetic, wimpy act right now. She whips around to the counter, orders a beer, and snaps off a rude cowgirl at Greta. Greta snaps that the mage is awful with alcohol, but Hidamari slams the argument shut and orders her to pour it anyway. Wim sits there, painfully awkward in the silence, while Gratis-Eyes watches, then agrees to bring just one drink. The waitress storms back and slams a gigantic wooden tankard of beer right in front of the pouty girl. Hidamari immediately stumbles into a drunken rant, preaching cognitive dissonance and the fable of the fox and the grapes. Right as she tries to finish her point, she crumples forward, slams her face onto the table, and drops out cold. Moments later, she jolts up, demanding another drink. Then Greta calmly points out she's still only halfway through her first jug. Win snaps and declares she's had enough, calling it quits for the day. Right before they walk out the door, Mary slides a business card across the table toward her friend. Win grabs it and scans the card. Nactal then freezes, staring like the name just turned the lights out in his head. The card flashes the emblem of the strongest A-rank party in full brown, famous for its top-tier status and brutal screening that won't let just anyone in. Wim remembers it clearly. Hidamari got picked up by that elite crew early on, and just like that, she's shot to fame fast. Flashback hits. Mary catches Hyde writing a note, daring Wim to show up at their party house the very next day. When he asks if he can just show up, she tells him, "Work for us just temporarily so you can get the experience." And she promises right there to vouch for him. Blushing with pride, she grins and declares that as the 74th Sage and a shoe in for top brass, pulling all of this together is a piece of cake for her. Back in the present, a groggy Hidamari barks out a miserable groan as Wim hauls her out of the inn beneath the night sky. Win shoots Greta a thankful smile, then shifts the sleeping girl on his back to keep her comfortable. Greta asks if he needs a strengthening buff just to handle the weight, and Wim laughs it off, saying she isn't heavy at all. Hide. Mary mutters in her sleep that Grantor is weak, then rubs her cheek against his shoulder like she can't stop thinking about him. Greta shoos them away, snapping at Wim to watch his step around those drunk adventurers roaming the streets at this late hour. Wim drifts through the dim cobblestone streets, totally swallowed by the invitation swirling in his head. He's terrified that if he joins Naklibble just because Hidamari vouches for him, the other members will look at him like he doesn't belong. A shadow of insecurity flickers across his face because he's terrified that someone like him would only bring chaos to a party this elite. His worst fear is that one day his inevitable downfall will make Hidamari turn on him and hate him. Out of the dark, a glass bottle rockets toward the two of them. A bottle crashes down near them in a violent smash, and a visual effect flashes like it just scored a perfect 100 impact. Raucus lets out a taunting burst of laughter from a nearby alleyway, smashing the silence of the night like thunder. Wim whips around, and in the dark he spots two figures, one sneering that the thrower missed the target completely. In the alley, one of the drunks snaps his head back and chugs the last bitter dregs straight from a dark bottle. Letting out a satisfied breath, he declares it at his turn and tosses the empty bottle straight to his equally drunk buddy. Wim barrels on, hauling Hyde Mary past the men, while they shout in furious outrage, screaming that their thrown bottle missed its target. The adventurer keeps marching in perfect stride, and one of the men snaps at him with an aggressive shout. The drunk lurches ahead, face blazing red, blurting out a confused sound as he struggles to lock onto the world through his spinning, smeared vision. He strides into the light, squares up to Wim, and demands the kid's attention with a nasty slur. Squinting at Wim's back, the man stammers, trying to wrap his head around who the rider even is. Hyde Mary dozes off peacefully on Wim's shoulder, and that tiny hiccup snaps the drunk's attention like a lightning strike. Recognition hits the man's face in a flash. He jabs an accusing finger and erupts, shouting that she's the thief from back then. Wim freezes, brow furrowed, and blurts, "Thief," again and again, stuck, trying to make the charge click while his friend is still sound asleep. The men shriek in perfect sync that she gobbled up the whole stash of limited edition Snowball snacks while they were still stuck waiting in line. Wim's heart stings with pity for their petty fight, but in private he can't help thinking calling her a thief over shopping is straight up ridiculous. Without caring about reason, the men shove for instant satisfaction, then bark at Wim to wake up so she can apologize. Wim lets out a shaky sigh, eyes full of dread, and realizes there's no way he can charm his way out of this mess. The drunks snap at his silence, and they roar at him to stop acting like he can't hear their demands. One of the men lunges forward and yanks Hyde Mary up by force, screaming at Wim to wake her up right now. A magic crest snaps to life on Wim's chest as he stays stone silent, firing off his pump-up Zwei Mole ability and doubling his physical stats in an instant. In a flash of pure speed, Wim disappears on the spot, and the man's hand snaps shut on nothing but empty air. Two drunks stagger in a dead empty street, mouths agape, spinning around in pure confusion as they scramble to figure out where their target vanished to. Sprinting through the alleyways, Wim shoots off a silent apology for Hyde Mary, because he remembers how she'd once shared those same candies with him. In that alley, the aggressive drunk freezes with his mouth hanging open, his brain totally unable to catch up to how fast everything just happened. Wim slips away from the confrontation on the spot, sweating over the idea that his sudden exit could have only fueled their rage even more. The two men freeze up, beads of cold sweat flooding their faces as the terrifying truth of what just happened finally sinks in. Terror rips through their eyes when it finally clicks. The sleeping girl is none other than the infamous Hyde Mary of Naklable. They huddle close and whisper like crazy, freaking out over one question. Could that man moving with impossible speed be part of that elite party too? One man glances at the ground, his face drained of color, and whispers to his partner, "Did you see the mess it left behind?" Deep, jagged gouges ripped into the stone pavement, where Wim hurled himself forward, screaming proof of just how brutally powerful that kickoff was. Still blind to the panic he sparked, Wim rockets through the city streets, racing toward the clock tower with Hyde Mary locked tight on his back. He finally skids to a stop at a safe distance, gasping hard, and tells himself the drunks won't come after him. Safe and sound, Hyde Mary sinks into her sleep and lets out a satisfied groan, totally oblivious to the chaos she just unleashed. Paused. Win jolts at the weight on his back, shoots a question. "Hyde Mary, are you awake?" Then checks if she's finally sober enough to walk by herself. Instead of letting go, she clamps her arms around his neck in a tight squeeze and murmurs, barely above a whisper, that she refuses to let him move just yet. Wim's thoughts drift back to that earlier moment when she reassured him straight up, saying she'd personally vouch for him to join her elite party, just to wipe out all his doubts. Deep's self-doubt crawls in fast as he wonders, does someone with his lowly status even have the nerve to join a legendary group like Naklibble? He stares at the massive gap between them and realizes she's not just a rare sage, she's also a high-ranking contender for the guild's top brass. Guilt crushes him every time he reminds himself he can't drag any more trouble onto the one person who's always shown him real kindness. A vivid memory slams back Hyde Mary screaming at him to just come with her, ramming through his insecurities with pure emotional force. Her hand clamps hard on his shoulder, and suddenly he's locked right into the moment held there by her steady, unshakable support. She leans close and murmurs into his ear, telling him the future is endless and that once he finally stands beside Nacht Libel, he'll see exactly how priceless he really is. With a soft but unshakable voice, she orders Wim to stop shrinking himself, break free, and live his life exactly the way he wants. A flash of her smiling face hits his mind like lightning, flooding him with the warmth and total trust he's been starved for far too long. Wim stammers shoots out a heartfelt thank you, her voice trembling with gratitude that she showed up for him when he was sinking into the darkest depths of despair. With a fresh surge of courage, he leans in and tells her, "If I'm gonna live free, then you get to live free too. Do it your way." Trying to snap back to reality, he stammers that since she's awake and sober, she should probably get off him now. "Hide." Mary snaps back with one blunt word and she buries her face deeper into his coat, trying to smother those rising cheeks. When he demands a reason, she just mumbles that his back feels perfect and then flat out declares she's not going anywhere. She leans in and whispers that he's warm, that his back is broad, and the safety hits her so hard she feels peace settle in, the kind she refuses to let go of. Her voice turns sweet and fragile as she begs him to let her stay, just like this, a little longer. Wim's face turns tomato red at the sudden closeness. He stammers his agreement, then decides he'll carry her for as long as she needs. As Wim steps into the quiet night, he makes a silent vow he's done with his past, and from tomorrow, he's giving it everything he's got. Nacht Lebel's emblem hangs there like a battle banner, because this is the biggest A-rank party in the whole land, packed with over 100 elite fighters. A massive mansion punches up against the sky, towering as the party house of a guild that's already wiped out 30 of every known floor boss. A stoic guard in heavy armor stands sentinel by the iron gates, eyes prowling the perimeter like he's hunting for trouble before it even shows up. Wim paces back and forth in front of the entrance, jittery to the bone, and his anxiety blasts off him in thick waves while the guard just watches. Sweat batters Wim's face as he freezes on the spot, swallowed by self-doubt, asking himself if he truly has a right to stand in a place this prestigious. The guard squints at the jittery kid and right away he clocks him as a suspicious one. The guard steps in, marches straight up to the trembling wreck, and snarls, "What's your business with the guild?" Wim jerks back in pure shock at the sudden confrontation, blushing and stammering out a messy, half-formed explanation for why he's even there. Panic floods him, and Wim blurts his creepy signature laugh straight into the guard's face by accident. The guard jerks back in terror, convinced that the sudden burst of movement and that strange noise means someone's about to strike and rip out a weapon. Desperate to stop the tension, Wim gropes for the business card Hydemary handed him and thrusts it forward with hands that won't stop shaking. The guard's face snaps from calm to full-on shock as he reads the card because he realizes that this suspicious boy is actually her friend. Wim's eyes flicker with confusion, and the guard's ominous stress on her throws her off balance. "Hide." Mary bursts in with a glowing grin, beaming Wim to the headquarters of Nacht Libel. Wim slips inside and blurts a breathy gasp, his eyes going wide as the opulent interior hall dazzles him and a sparkling fountain steals the spotlight. As Hydemary drags Wim's attention to the huge training hall and the cafeteria, Wim can't believe it. This doesn't feel like a party house at all. It feels like a royal mansion. He quietly slips away through the grand corridors, shrinking with every step as the massive halls make him feel painfully small. Guard Abel shoots out a quick apology for his earlier hostility, then bluntly tells Wim right to his face that she doesn't look anything like the person he was warned to expect. Abel stared at his own size and snapped, "How did I even make a mistake this huge?" Because the description he'd been given didn't match reality at all. All red-faced and panicked, Hydemary blurts, "Shut up," while the guard presses on, insisting she said Wim was a gallant, manly gentleman. Blushing hard and panicking, Mary yanks Wim away from the guard and barrels down the hallway to hide her embarrassment. They burst into the main gathering hall, a loud, chaotic hub where top-tier adventurers trade rumors, swap gear, and line up for their next quest. Hydemary halts in front of the seated figure and, with perfect formality, declares she's brought the recruit like she promised. A razor-sharp stare pins Wim the moment she notices him, long, sleek hair swaying as this cool, composed woman gives him a quiet nod. Wim freezes in stunned silence, eyes widening the moment he realizes just how brutally powerful the aura blasting off the woman in front of him really is. He suddenly realizes he's standing face to face with Camilla the Silverhair, the legendary boss of Nacht Libel. Camilla sizes him up with a ruthless stare, then bluntly says he's way smaller than the warrior she'd pictured. She bursts into a big, hearty laugh, teasing him about that rumor that he's some handsome, masculine hero, while Hyde Mary is freaking out in the background. A hulking, armored gauntlet thrusts toward him, offering a handshake packed with the brutal force of her unstoppable strength. Wim's hands shake as he nervously grips hers, and he blurts out that he used to be with dragon's wings. Then he finally steps into his brand new life for real. Camilla breaks into a real smile because the new recruit looks harmless until that quiet grin shows off a grip so strong it surprises everyone. She warmly welcomes him to Naklibel and then drops the bombshell that Hidamari already spilled every detail about what he can do. Wim blurts out in a shaky stammer that his mana is low and he only handled chores, and Camilla immediately presses him for what his exact job used to be in his old party. He tells them his job is strictly non-combat, nothing but hunting enemies with detection searches and handling regular office work. When he tries to say he got fired, Mary panics and cuts him off fast, shutting him down so he doesn't spill more nasty details than he should. Camilla tunes out their bickering and smoothly assigns the women to rearguard duty for the scouting dive they're about to launch. Shock hits Wim so hard he stammers because he can't wrap his head around it. These people really plan to walk into that labyrinth right now. Camilla strides off, declaring that real experience beats theory every time, and Wim just stands there, scrambling to make sense of the sudden command. Panic crashes over him as he snaps that it's way too early, and he's never even tried raiding with a crowd this massive before. Hidamari whips around with a dazzling grin and tells him, with total confidence, that everything's about to be perfectly fine. Wim goes still, eyes blazing with pure terror, totally unmoved by her stubborn optimism in the face of danger. The story whips you into the cold, stone-walled corridors deep inside that ruthless labyrinth. Every last member of the Nacht Libel Guild forms a tight, solemn circle around a glowing stone pillar, right in the heart of the chamber. Ancient runes flare to life across the structure as the magical device charges up, ready to trigger its teleportation power. A blinding column of light explodes from the pillar, and you can practically feel it. The teleportation sequence is fully charged and ready to fire. This device is a teleportation circle, an essential mechanism hidden on certain levels, made to blast adventurers through the maze, crush the floor boss, and boom, these circles light up, letting parties rocket past multiple floors in seconds through special shortcut routes. The massive party kicks off their march. Each armored step slams loud against the cold stone floor. Wim freezes in shock when Hidamari suddenly slams on the brakes and stops cold right in front of him. The other guild members stop mid-step and whip their heads back, feeling the whole vibe snap the moment the procession grinds to a halt. A battle-worn veteran stares on with a grim face, holding his breath as he waits for the leaders to finally smash through the holdup. Hidamari stands there stone still, jaw set and eyes focused, ready to unleash a security protocol aimed at keeping non-members out. Wim, thrown off by the sudden halt, grabs his friend and blurts, "What's going on? Why did everyone freeze?" She lays out a thick cloth, then shoots him a quick, apologetic look and asks him to slip on the blindfold just for a little while. Hidamari snaps that, since he's basically an outsider, they can't let him lay eyes on the guild's secret teleportation line. He calmly tightens the blindfold on and doesn't argue a word, knowing that keeping Intel's precious route secure is a huge advantage. Now totally blind, he stands there, frozen in place until Hidamari orders him to reach out and grab her. With a ruthless grip, Wim clamps onto her hand and guides him through the dark. Silence snaps between them as they stand hand in hand, and the rest of the party watches that display like it's about to explode. Hidamari's face erupts in a furious blush, and the second he holds her hand in public, she can't help it. She's squealing in her head, burning with thrilled excitement at how bold he's being. Wim wildly flaps his hands in full panic, stuttering that he should have grabbed her shoulder instead because he can't see a thing. He begs Mary to stop teasing him. He has no clue she's secretly loving every second of holding his hand. With a friend leading him, the blindfolded mage shadows the party as they snap through secret teleportation circles, blasting their way forward. The crew finally bursts into the towering, intimidating sprawl of the 97th floor, hidden deep inside the labyrinth's maze of halls. Wim can't believe it. An A-rank party moving with terrifying efficiency, and somehow they rocketed down to that deep floor in record time. Panic slams into his chest as he spirals into thinking he's useless, offering nothing, just a name stained with knacked libel. He can't stop worrying that all he's doing is copying others and that it'll drag an entire huge, capable crew down with him. Hyde-Marie shoots a look back at the mumbling recruit and clocks it instantly. His caution isn't attitude. It's pure first-timer nerves. She isn't annoyed at all. She smirks to herself, realizing that being careful might be the smartest power an adventurer can have. Wim yelps in pure shock as he slams into something, then freezes when he realizes Camilla is right behind him, looming. Silver-haired and calm, the leader leans in, smiles at the boy, and softly tells him to stop clenching up like he's about to snap. She tells him, "You already took down this floor's boss with your last beer ank party, so don't stress." Camilla tells him to do what he can, reminding him that today's real mission is simple map the area. Her unexpected kindness smashes into him, and suddenly tears sting his eyes as Wim chokes out a shaky, grateful acknowledgement. Camilla leans in and reassures him, one final time. Nachtlevel is packed with good people, and that's what finally lets him breathe easy. Wim's face flips from pure anxiety to razor focus as he starts hunting the air for anything off any crack in the normal. A weird anomaly snaps his focus. His body locks up mid-breath, and his eyes snap to the dungeon walls in sheer panic. He swallows his words, then whispers to Hyde-Marie that he thinks he heard something only to panic, that it might have been nothing but his own imagination. Caught between reporting it or staying silent, he can't shake the feeling that that weird sound is an omen, like a hidden trap is lurking just out of sight. Instead of gambling on luck, he widens his magical search range and rushes to track down that unsettling feeling that something's seriously off. He thrusts his hand ahead, pouring mana into a specialized detection spell, and lets it slice through the darkness. A blazing magic circle erupts on his palm as he unleashes his search ability, blasting the area with a scan. The spell flared to life, painting the corridor ahead in magic light and exposing the dungeon's hidden bones, locked secrets, and everything waiting just beyond his magical sight. His eyes flare wide with shock as the scan snaps the truth into focus. There's a real, unmistakable threat biding its time. He snaps his memory back to the standing order report, every single thing he spots to Camilla at once, using transmission magic. He swallows his doubts, obeys the command, and readies himself to warn the leader about the danger closing in. The party keeps climbing that massive staircase, totally oblivious as something gets triggered in the shadows behind them. Wim slips out of formation and politely calls to Camilla, asking for just a moment of her time. Camilla tilts her head just a little, clocks him as Wim Boy, and waits, ready for his report. He lays it out with surgical precision. The rockfall trap is primed to snap on at the upper left side, exactly 45 meters away. Camilla scrutinizes the report's truth, her sharp gaze slicing right through the thick tension in the air. Wim stammers, snaps into silence, plants his feet, and sizes up the situation. There's a 90 chance that trap won't spring until it's time to strike. Trap set. With one casual wave, Camilla tells him, like it's nothing, to broadcast what he finds on the public channel next time. Wim swallows hard, her heart pounding at the thought of having to speak to the entire massive party all at once. He clenched his courage, fired up the transmission magic, and blasted his voice out so it rippled through every last member. He fires off a jaw-dropping report with laser-precise details down to the exact mass, shape, and where that rockfall is about to smash down. A wave of pure confusion hits the vanguard, and the seasoned warriors jolt in shock at the sudden announcement. Doubt explodes through the ranks, and Wim's breath catches as panic claws at him. Did he really doom everything with his choice? Wim sweats bullets as Hyde-Marie smirks with pride, while Camilla stays ice calm and calmly steers her tank straight to deal with the threat. Abel strides forward without a blink, declaring he'll handle the trap himself. The armored warrior hammers forward straight into the blast zone, and he hoists his massive shield like he's daring the danger to come at him. He braces himself on the trigger point, and the moment the mechanism clicks under his boots, he's already ready to strike. A massive stone pillar slams out of the darkness above, screaming straight toward the defender, trying to splatter him into paste. With a thunderous crash, Abel snaps the falling monolith onto his shield, and it slams to a complete stop. With not a scratch on him, Abel stands like stone and shouts that the trap's been cleared right as the dust swirls down around his feet. Camilla nods, satisfied with the successful defense, while the rest of the party just gapes in shocked silence. The adventurer's voice cracked with disbelief as he finally saw it. This trap matched Wim's description perfectly, down to the tiniest detail. They trade stunned looks because they've never seen a scout map, a trap's shape, then actually wait for it to spring. Speculation goes into overdrive as they wonder if this god-level precision is the hidden weapon powering Dragon's Wings. As Hyde Mary flashes a Cheshire Cat grin, some jittery Wim reads the silence wrong and panics, thinking he's about to get himself in deep trouble. Hyde Mary grins and practically dances as he tells everyone that Wim's normal is wildly special and that he's about to prove this wasn't just a lucky fluke. In the middle of a quick breather, the party drops into stunned silence as Camilla locks onto the horizon, her mind racing over that shocking revelation. She jerks in shock when she realizes Wim is using high-level detection magic like it's nothing just as casual as breathing. Her mind rockets back to the story of Dragon's Wings, the party that shot straight to the top rank in record time. Confusion gnaws at her as she can't wrap her head around it. How a mage with skills so game-breaking was kept hidden and then dumped and fired. Wim's voice suddenly slices through the silence over the transmission, begging for her attention again. He's seeing the humidity skyrocket, and the weird part, all the low-level winged insects around here are suddenly gone. The veterans lean in and listen hard as he spells it out. These environmental shifts mean a deadly predator is closing in nearby. Wim realizes, way too late, they've stumbled straight into the hunting grounds of some massive, hostile monster. He clocks the danger as the Great Tortoise, Zaratan, and right away, he hatches a detour plan to slip around that beast. Camilla squints hard and demands confirmation. She needs to be absolutely sure his report about the monster's territory is real. Wim shoots her a nervous look and says he's a full 90. Sure, his assessment is right. Camilla lets out a sharp sigh and tells him to use the public transmission for high-probability threats, looking fed up with his hesitation. Wim drops his head in shame, stammers out a tiny apology, and swears he's just upset the leader. Panic races through his mind as he starts telling himself he's blown it again, another deadly critical mistake. Camilla snaps, demanding he hand the search over to Simon, then pushes him straight up to the front lines. Wim's stomach drops as he reads the order like a death sentence, convinced they've fired him from his role. Camilla strides up to the group and declares, "No detours right now. We hunt the Great Tortoise." She snaps her sharp gaze back to the recruit and declares she wants to watch his skills tested in real combat as a granter. A terrified Wim gasps as it realizes one brutal truth. If it fails right here, this world has no next stop waiting for it. With fear clawing at him, he clenched his fists and swore right then and there that he'd give everything to be truly useful. Camilla snaps her attention over and barks that the other scout brings her an enemy status report right now. Simon checks his detection magic, then reports the target is dead asleep about 200 meters ahead. The leader starts firing off commands at lightning speed, ordering the vanguard to move and telling Hyde Mary to get ready to unleash her spells. The knocked-level elites fire off their unanimous battle cry as one, readying themselves for war. Camilla jabs her finger at Wim and slams him with the make-or-break job stay on Abel and feed him every single buff. Wim blurts out a shaky yes, forcing his courage up as the fight ahead decides his whole future. Wim shuts his eyes, recites his personal mantra, and slips into quiet seclusion, just helping others, without ever drawing attention. He realizes the whole time his only mission was figuring out how to help people from the shadows. A razor-sharp stare pierces his thoughts as he finally realizes reality has completely veered off the path he imagined. The massive Great Tortoise pounds ominously into the debris far away, and Wim stands there, frozen in fear, staring down the beast. Hyde Mary shoves him onward, barking, "Now strike while it's busy feasting." She says that with the whole guild watching, this is his golden shot to prove he truly belongs. Camilla and the elite crew of Knocked Libel lock eyes with the pair, staring them down like they're about to pass judgment. Win flinches as the legendary party's eyes hit them all at once, and pure terror slams in like they're about to crack under the spotlight. His heart slams against his ribs as he steels himself to fix that earlier mistake and keep any more trouble from bursting out. Caught in a crushing spiral of doubt about his own words, he barely registers Hyde Mary yelling his nickname. Hyde Mary finally shatters his spiraling self-pity by screaming his name right beside his ear. She flashes him a grin full of confidence and straight up asks for his usual support buff because she's about to launch an ice spear. Wim locks eyes on her back as she hoists that massive weapon, still reeling from how casually she asks for the usual. Nostalgia crashes over him the second he remembers their duo dives, and he realizes this exact familiar rhythm is what he's been craving. A real smile bursts through his anxiety as the brutal pressure finally slips off his shoulders. Hyde Mary, he can't hold it in. He pumps his fists, thanks her, and declares he's finally ready to fight. Metal bits clack and snap together as Hyde Mary's one-of-a-kind magical contraption charges up and readies itself to fire. She strikes a fearless pose, weapon held high, and declares it's finally time to unleash her real power on the whole guild. Wim immediately spots the upgrades to her gear, and she's blown away, tripling the density while shrinking the size. He flashes a grin, stunned with admiration, because this kind of brilliant engineering is exactly what he knew he'd see from her. Hyde Mary kicks off the generation sequence, eyes blazing with pure thrill as she starts the spell. Mana starts to gather in the air, flashing with raw power as the magic finally takes shape. Tortoise Zeraton, huge as a mountain, halts mid-bite, whips its massive head around, and at last spots the danger. A thick, crushing silence smothers the battlefield as that colossal monster snaps its gaze onto the two tiny adventurers. High above, a colossal spear of solid ice slams into existence with a thunderous crack. Then it leans in, ready to come crashing down. A colossal projectile hangs over the ruins like a nightmare, swallowing the pillars and looming over the adventurers below. Wim cranes his neck in total awe, because any normal mage would get utterly lost trying to comprehend the sheer, mind-blowing scale of this magic. Hyde Mary bursts into confident laughter, flashing powers that blow past every modern magic rule. An infographic spills the truth. Sorcerers and priests get stuck with only certain magic types, but sages smash the rules and work with magic beyond the limits. The text flat out says Hyde Mary's sage class is the absolute peak because it lets her command every kind of magic that exists. Hyde Mary leans in and tells Wim the truth. Sages can build the raw magic pieces needed to conjure brand new spells from nothing. With a dramatic flourish, she proudly gives her formal stamp of approval on the grant Wim Strauss provided. Wim grins at his friend, then accepts the connection and kicks off the enchantment process. Wim gathers his mana, then hurls hard, icy spell forged enchantments straight onto the blazing magic circle. A roaring burst of magic flares out, and the magic circle swells, snapping into place and locking with the giant ice structure floating over the ruins. Hyde Mary jolts. He didn't buffer at all. He slammed his strengthening magic straight into the spell construct. The huge ice projectile shudders as the enchant spell locks in, then its shape snaps sharper and sharper into a terrifying weapon. Hyde Mary yells the order to shoot as the colossal tortoise rumbles straight toward them, dangerously close. With a deafening roar, a giant ice spear rockets forward, aiming to slam into the oncoming monster. It rockets forward at mind-numbing speed, streaking through the sky so fast it's just a blur ripping through the atmosphere. A massive explosion detonates on impact, blasting shards of ice and wreckage screaming through the air in every direction. Camilla and the rest of NACT Libel shriek in pure terror as the shockwave rips toward them. The impact blasts the giant beast clean off the ground. Then it crashes hard into the ruined walls with a violent thud. Adventurers slap their hands over their faces and hunker down, bracing for the gale force winds blasting at them from the impact. The great tortoise gets completely wrecked. Its shell caves in and enchanted ice spikes drive straight through its body. Shivering in the cold, Wim blurts out an apology to Hyde Mary and panics that he accidentally cranked the magic output way too high. Hyde Marie assures him it was flawless, then casually tells him the party is already convinced he just proved he's got the skills. She whips around to the leader with a proud grin and fires off. Camila, what do you think of Wim's incredible performance? A sharp crack rings out from the leader's direction, and everyone snaps their eyes to her armor. Camilla drops her gaze to her shoulder pauldron, and the unreadable look on her face says she's already clocked the damage. Wim catches a crack in her priceless armor, and the panic hits her instantly. Sure, Wim has messed up again. Camilla snaps out to Vimboy in a serious voice, and he jolts hard, responding with a terrified stammer. She shrugs off the damage like it's nothing and barks, "Buff the shield unit, Wyvern's coming." She turns away from him and flat out demands one thing: watch his defensive enchantment in action this time. Wimbos trembles with nerves, blurts out he understands, and lets out a breath of relief because he still gets to matter. Hydemary just watches with a smug, cat-like grin, clocking the moment Camilla clearly liked what she saw. Wim tightens his fist with pure resolve, convinced fate just handed him a second chance, and he vows to give it everything he's got. Hydemary lets out a heavy sigh at his sheer density, basically saying his inability to read the room has turned into a full-blown illness, while the other party members gasp in disbelief at how impossibly fast that spear moves even when you can't see it. Mary hides a smile because she finally gets why he's so dangerous. Two veterans lock eyes with the pair, sweat pouring down their faces as terror claws at them from the sheer, insane power of this brand new grantor. Hydemary whips her head toward her friend with a suspicious glare, and Wim panics straight up, frantically denying he said a single word. A towering armored warrior strides forward with a calm, respectful smile and announces himself Abel, the squad leader. Wim gapes in awe. This kid is the same age as him, and somehow he's already in charge of a whole unit. Abel cocks his head, baffled, as he stands there waiting for the frozen recruit to finally answer his greeting. Panic crashes through Wim's mind the second he realizes he has zero idea what to say to a stranger. Abel leans in to ask if he's okay, but Wim can only blurt out a jumbled mess of panic noises. Wim spirals into self-hate, convinced his awkward silence is making the leader think he's completely disgusting. A crushing vision of rejection floods his thoughts, and he's convinced Abel will end up loathing him just like everyone else. To his shock, Abel lights up with a blinding smile and calmly tells the nervous mage to just relax. Wim's cheeks burn as a warm, fuzzy feeling swells in his chest. He can't believe someone's showing him kindness like this, out of nowhere. Abel starts grilling everyone about defensive buffs, and Wim can only shrug and admit he hasn't really used them much yet. Wait, another party member pipes up and says grantors are insanely rare in NACT libel because that job is so unpopular, nobody's signing up. Wim tells you his magic runs on pure consciousness, and to trigger it, the target has to verbally declare their approval first. It explains that buffs can jack up your raw power and speed or level up your weapons quality to make them way deadlier. Right when he starts saying the target has to be willing, a cold, stern voice snaps in out of nowhere and shuts him down mid-sentence. A hulking, scarred man storms forward and flat out says he hates getting hit with buffs. Wim's eyes go wide in total disbelief, and he's instantly blindsided by the brutal, sudden rejection. Mark introduces himself, then leans in for the details, quickly apologizing if his blunt words sounded rude. Mark breaks it down. Buffs don't just boost stats, they mess with how your body feels, and then admits he got wrecked by the grantor once before. He remembers that last mage who crammed on attributes with zero restraint, then watched everything fall apart as his own body started losing control mid-fight. Wim quickly reassures him, "Relax, these are just beginner buffs, and they won't mess with your body control." He explains that he's stacking a tricky combo of simple effects, but Mark's face only tightens more and more. Wim jerks back when the veteran locks eyes with him, glaring with a terrifying, over-the-top aggression. Mark bares his teeth and demands an answer. Does Wim really think he's an amateur just for asking a single question? Tara's wash of water soaks over Wim as he starts to convince himself, like it's totally working, that he's somehow managed to piss off the scary veteran. Mark quickly says it straight. He's not angry, he just wants the full details so he can learn. Win realizes that Mark's terrifying interrogation isn't some menace at all. It's just the cold, meticulous thoroughness of a knacked, liberal elite. He tells the tank his senses won't slip an inch, but Mark leans in and demands, "Are you 100 sure?" Mark leans in like a predator, lets out that sharp "ha," and panic detonates all over the poor mage. Wim freezes in tense silence, trying to decode the terrifying sound spilling out of the veteran. Confusion surges through the shield unit as they grapple with Wim's wild promise that his buff changes nothing about how it feels at all. Wim begs for permission to lay it out, saying his whole skill hinges on one thing. There's zero sensory disruption. Mark stammered out a shaky agreement, clearly not ready for a lecture, but still leaning in to listen. A radiant grin bursts across Wim's face as the realization hits. This is the very first time anyone has ever truly asked him for an explanation. He bursts into a fiery rant, tearing apart the difference between the rusting method and the casting method of application magic. Wim points out that every adventurer's body and strength are different, so a one-size-fits-all buff is doomed from the start. He warns that sloppy magical upgrades can snap a user's bones in an instant, so Mark blurts out, "Yep," in full agreement. Mark can't stop staring as the recruits flex their knowledge, and he praises Nacht Level's elite standards for turning them into true experts. Wim keeps blasting out non-stop academic ranting, hurling out tangled magical theory so fast it whooshes clean over everyone's heads. Wim suddenly realizes he's been rambling, snaps himself shut, and shoots a sheepish grin as he blurts out an apology. Mark waves off the apology, even as his eyes look dazed by the sheer avalanche of information. Wim leans in and says he crams 7 defense enchantments and 25 sensory enchantments into one spell, perfectly balanced and ready to unleash. Mark throws his hands up and yells for him to stop, drowning in the sheer technical details. The whole squad freezes in stunned silence, staring at the tiny mage who just casually dropped a thesis on them like it's nothing. Wim recoils in pure fear, certain his way to overhyped explanation has ruined everything again. Mark snaps back to his senses and blurts in pure disbelief, "Wait, are you really saying you can grant dozens of enhancements all at once, Wim?" Wim humbly admits he has to master the magic Shred It and use it flawlessly because his mana reserves are painfully low. Mark leans in close, scanning one last time, because he needs to be 100 sure his senses won't change a single bit, just like always. Wim nods hard and says the only real change Mark will notice is this. His body is firing on all cylinders, like it's never been this strong. With his eyes shut tight and resolve blazing, Mark slaps a hand to his chest and declares, loud and clear, that he's giving the grant his full approval. The other squad members stare at him in pure shock, like, "Are you really sure you want to trust this newcomer?" Mark grins wide and boldly says that Wim's massive knowledge is all the proof he needs to back his competence. Wim stands there, wide-eyed, and his chest tightens with emotion when he finally realizes someone actually trusts him. Tears sting at the edge of his eyes as he swears heart and soul that he'll repay that trust with his absolute best. Wim slams the spell to life, and a blazing, intricate magic circle erupts around Mark's torso. The veteran tank gasps hard, eyes popping wide as that enchantment of magic sinks into his frame. Mark rubs his chin hard, lost in deep thought, humming under his breath as he studies every tiny change in his body. Mark and Abel face off across the stone training hall, ready to unleash the new enhancement magic and see what it truly does. Mark explodes forward in a blur, slamming a heavy punch straight at Abel's shield to test the power he just unlocked. Two warriors slam into each other with jaw-dropping force, darting and weaving at speeds that make their bulky armor feel weightless. Wim huddles at the edge, shaking with nerves, fidgeting like crazy as he works up the courage to ask what magic feels like. Mark whips his gaze to him with a hard, serious look and says, flat out, "There's no point in trying to put it into words." With pure awe, he admits he can move his body even better than he ever could in his physical prime. Abel nods with pure excitement, staring like he can't believe it. Her body feels so light, it might as well be a dream. Wim clutches his chest and lets out a breath of relief, whispering, "Thank God," because he didn't hurt them by mistake. The moment the Grantor showed up, the other Shield Knights surged in like a pack, barking for him to hurry up and buff them too. Win flashes a dazzling real grin and joyfully agrees to power up the rest of the squad. The story snaps to the dungeon floor, an endless sea of towering pillars where the main force finally gathers. Wim abruptly starts to shake as a brutal, hostile presence crashes over his senses from nearby. He mutters that the enemy's here, and his instincts erupt, shrieking that a massive threat just arrived. A teammate spots his trembling and asks if he's all right, but Wim snaps back that something massive is coming right around the corner. Camilla instantly feels the danger and screams at everyone to get ready, because battle is coming. Right now, Wim clenches his collar with both hands, and determination hardens across his face like armor. From the dark above, a winged demon drops into view, its head a multi-eyed skull, and the whole scene feels like a nightmare coming for you. A tangled mass of eyes jerks and twitches wildly as the creature rips out a guttural, bone-chilling growl. It hangs high in the dungeon's arch, shrieking like a nightmare as it swoops down toward the adventurers, who don't back an inch. Power swirls inside the monster's maw as it readies a brutal breath attack, ready to tear everything apart. The shield unit surges forward in a tight wall, roaring a war cry as they hunker down and brace for the blow. The demon spits out a colossal orb of magical fire, and it rockets straight toward the defensive line. The fireball smashes straight into the magically reinforced shields, and the vanguard gets swallowed by a blinding flash. Everyone's jaws drop. This attack doesn't just get blocked, it gets slung back at the caster with brutal force. The demon shrieks in full agony as its own fireball blasts it out of the sky and rams it into the ground. Spectators choke on shock, screaming that the shield unit just pulled off a mind-blowing high-level reflection maneuver. Shield up, Mark just freezes eyes locked forward, sweat blasting down his face as pure shock hits him like a wave. He whips around to his squad and, with a voice trembling out of sheer disbelief, demands to know if they really just pulled off a reflection. The other knights blurted, "This is the first time we've ever done it." And they stared in disbelief, like it had to be some miracle. Mark glares into the distance, a crooked grin on his face, refusing to accept that something as small as a buff could unlock a feat this insane. Camilla screams the command, "Fire!" and orders the long-range units to obliterate targets right now. Arrows and magic spells slam down on the wyvern in a blinding storm of pure, furious chaos. A mage roars through the incantation for Jupiter's spear, and a massive bolt of lightning crashes down, smashing the beast. When the smoke finally clears, Guji stands there totally unscathed, then lets loose a mocking growl like it's laughing at everyone. Camilla watches the whole thing fall apart with a razor-sharp stare, clocking that their attacks didn't even leave a scratch. She spots the strange gleam in its eyes and realizes those scales are wrapped in an anti-magic coating. The leader locks in on the truth. They're up against a one-of-a-kind wyvern subspecies that shrugs off standard magic like it's nothing. Wim just stares in silence, completely lost because this opponent feels impossible to crack. Camilla shoots her hand up and barks at the whole party to back off and clear the area. With a smug, confident smirk, she claims her moment is here. She's finally taking the stage. Her cape snaps and billows as she strides forward, and a wall of raw power blasts out from her like a thunderclap. Hyde Mary flashes a smile at Camilla and tells her, "I'm handing the rest of this battle to your capable hands." Camilla's thoughts snap back to that insane reflection. Move the shield unit pulled off earlier. She stares in awe as 5 different people pull off that brutal skill in flawless sync, like they're one mind moving as one. A wave of intense curiosity hits her when she finally sees how much power Wim's magic is sitting on, just waiting to be unleashed. She can't stop wondering if that same buff hit her body. What kind of monster would she turn into? The mystery ahead sparks a grin on her face as she pictures tearing through her own physical limits. She whips around and roars at the rookie, "Vimboy!" just to yank his attention right now. Wim bolts over with jittery nerves and asks her straight up if she wants him to slap a buff on her before the fight. Camilla orders him to unleash every last offensive buff in his arsenal, every single one. Wim crunches the risk numbers and declares that a 3-fold boost is the highest safe ceiling you can go. Camilla narrows her eyes, then shoots him with a sharp accusation she says he's playing it safe, and dares him to go even further. Wim spirals into panic, convinced that if she pushes her power too far, it'll tear her own body apart. She ignores the warning, raises her hands like a dare, and orders a 10-time surge in power. Wim's mind erupts in a scream as she can't even wrap her head around the wild thing she's being asked to do. He blurts out that this boost is a death wish, but she shuts him down and refuses to hear a word of reason. Sweat drips down his face as it hits him. The leader is dead serious, and this reckless demand is no joke. He quietly concedes that it might be possible, then seals his fate like it's already written. Hyde Mary flashes a sadistic grin and declares she can't wait to see the results. Wim quivers in front of the leader, staring down the absolute deadliest buff of his life. No escape, just the terrifying casting. Wim clenched his focus and snapped his magic to life. His hand flared bright as he kicked off the spell sequence. A glowing digital grid slams over Camilla's silhouette as the spell Analyze slices through her entire physical form in a blink. Wim stared at her biology in pure awe, wondering if she was even human as she marveled at her insane muscle and bone density. His brain sparks into action, mapping every fulcrum and center of gravity like a master planner to squeeze the most power out of the magical enhancement. He locks in a battle plan built for maximum efficiency with the least risk, calling out the cast and bow to drill even the tiniest parts of her body. The spell enchant crashes down on Camilla, and the second it hits, her eyes blow wide as pure, terrifying power surges through her veins. A cocky smirk snaps onto the leader's face as she feels that unstoppable power surge through her enhanced form. She yanks out her massive blade, strides right at the beast, and roars the name of her weapon, Great Executioner, like a promise meant to end everything. Camilla stands stone still amid the ruined dust, staring down the horrific wyvern with zero fear, completely ready for whatever it brings. With a burst of speed, she rockets straight at the flying monster, gripping her blade like it's ready to end this in one crushing hit. Her eyes lock in with laser focus as she unleashes her signature multiplication skill, and the attack explodes into an amplified storm. A massive burst of pure energy detonates from her sword, and with one brutal swing, it slashes the air so hard, it feels like the sky itself gets torn open. A wave of adventurers stands dead still, their eyes locked tight on the wild spectacle tearing across the scene. They lean in, breathless with awe, because this is the first time they're seeing Sword the legendary Great Executioner unleash its real power. Seasoned veterans stare in stunned disbelief, because they've never once seen her multiplication skill swell this big. Camilla taunts the hulking wyvern, shrieking that it's just a little bird, as she lines up to deliver the final judgment. The crowd clamps their mouths shut, eyes wide, because they can't even wrap their heads around the disaster she's about to unleash. Her blade slams into the beast's skull with a thunderous roar, and the whole dungeon trembles from the impact. Wim and the shield unit just stood there with their jaws dropped, staring at the one-hit kill, like their brains couldn't even process it. Camilla squeezes her eyes shut and exhales, a surge of thrill flashing across her face as she soaks in the sweet, hard-earned calm after the fight. She lets out a breathless laugh, riding the rush of her enhanced combat like a wave of pure, electric euphoria. The dead silence snaps in half as the whole party explodes into cheers, lifting their weapons high to celebrate their leader's victory. Wim bolts forward in full panic, blurting out if she feels any pain or something off inside her body. Camilla looked down at the worried boy, and her face softened as she finally acknowledged his concern. She grabs his hands, flashes a huge smile, and tells him his muscles are unreal, while insisting her body feels totally fine. Wim lets out a huge sigh of relief, admitting he'd been terrified since there was a 5 chance of side effects. Camilla tilts her head, baffled. So that's what he's freaking out about, a measly 5 risk. She just stares at him, and as he lays it out, worst case, that buff could have torn a muscle. Her silence says she's not buying it. Wim swears muscle tears are pure agony, but Camilla just stares at him like he's treating a paper cut, like it's hilarious. He keeps pressing her about bodily harm, totally missing how she shrugs off those injuries as nothing. Camilla snaps her head back and explodes into loud, uncontrollable laughter at how ridiculous he's being. She leans in on that bewildered recruit and flashes a huge grin, right then and there deciding that Wim Strauss is an insanely interesting man. Her mind races through his resume and locks in on the details. His labyrinth knowledge, his razor-sharp search skills, and his grantor abilities are all top tier. She locks eyes on him with hungry ambition, swearing to herself that his past doesn't matter, because all she wants is to use him for her naked lie. Wim freezes in total confusion while she keeps laughing like a maniac, utterly baffled by why her reaction is going so off the rails. He starts sweating like crazy, panicking that his buff is messing with her brain. Could that weird behavior be a side effect? Beneath the pale moonlight, the knacked libel party house looms over everything, ready to explode into tonight's loud, wild celebration. Frothy mugs slammed together with thunderous force as the guild erupted in cheers, raising a roaring toast to kick off the festivities. The guildmaster roars that the labyrinth dive was a total win major map progress, a fresh gold vein uncovered, and then shouts for everyone to feast. The hall explodes into a wild storm of loud, messy cheers and non-stop joyful shouting. Monica the mage lights up like fireworks, grinning at Vim and blurting that his performance blew her mind, calling it downright amazing. She leans in, blurting out which enchantment was etched onto Marie's spear, like she's sure only someone with insane skill could pull that off. Vim squirms and confesses he once dreamed of becoming a mage, so he soaked up that kind of knowledge first before pushing it even farther. Monica bursts into hearty laughter, realizing that the theory powering his technique is way more complex than it looks. Vim shuts himself off inside his own head, panicking over how to talk to someone he barely even knows and scrambling for what he should do next. A voice snaps from under the table, "Vimson!" and it rips him out of his spiraling thoughts in a jolt. Bettina suddenly pops up to introduce herself as part of the search and rescue unit. Then she drags her leader, Simon, right along with her. Vim's jaw drops when he realizes he's standing face to face with Simon San, the legendary commander of the search and rescue unit. With his jaw practically stuttering from awe, Vim blurts that he's read every single one of Simon's books and articles. Simon gets super excited, rattling on about the trap he's cooking up, until Bettina snaps and shuts him down for blabbing about studies at the banquet. A huge, boisterous guy barrels in mid-scolding, bursts into loud laughter, and shouts that they should just go drink. Bettina snaps her irritation at Mark San, calling him out for always pounding back way too much to drink. Mark chuckles it off and shoves a drink at the tiny masked figure, but the poor thing looks like it's about to bolt out of its skin. Bettina brushes off the antique and shoots the conversation right back to the point, then turns to Vim and starts talking to them again. Simon rips into praise for Vim's reflection boost, admits he never saw it coming, and shoots a question. Did Vim set out to get that exact result? Vim humbly shakes his head, swearing he only helped in the background and that the party's skill is what truly carried everything. Simon roars with laughter, slaps Vim on the shoulder, and declares with full confidence that this kid is headed for greatness. Vim stands there speechless, cheeks burning, and totally lost on how to react to this huge praise from his hero. Another guy steps in looking crushed as he apologizes for his mess earlier that morning, then hypes the enhancement like it's the best thing ever. He finally admits he's been acting out too, and he rushes to make it right for what he did before. Vim lets out a nervous little laugh, but deep down he's panicking, thinking his awkwardness is ruining everyone's good mood. The table drops into a tense, awkward hush as everyone stares at Vim. Then he awkwardly bursts into a laugh just to kill the silence. Vim's mind spirals in pure panic, begging for an escape, praying he can vanish, or even end his own life to dodge the crushing social pressure. The man blurts out that Hyde Maris and told him Vim doesn't just exist. He carries his very own unique world inside him. Mark suddenly snatches Vim into a headlock, grinning wide as he taunts, asking if the kid feels like joining Naclable. Vim's flooded with emotion by their kindness, but he stammers, half afraid the truth is he might not belong in a crew that good. He tries to brush off the praise as nothing but sweet talk, but everyone at that table is genuinely cheering him on. A mysterious voice whispers that this guild is exactly where Vim can finally spread his wings for real. Vim stared at them, stunned by the fact that even with all this chaos swirling around, they somehow still moved with pure elegance. A strange longing starts to claw at him, and he can't help wondering if this is the place he's been searching for all along. Hyde Mary chows down on a carrot and chews loud, still mouth full, as she casually mouths out a thanks to Vim for busting his ass. She chews loudly, stares off like she's totally zoned out, and somehow still thanks you in her own quirky, deadpan way. The others grin and watch her like it's a show, because once again, she plops down and digs in to eat. She snaps that there's no meat left, and when they tell her most of it's already gone, it lands exactly like she'd been arguing, because that was her whole point. She teases Vim hard, calling out how everyone's after him, and even when he tries to wave it off, she keeps pushing until he finally begs her to cut it out. Vim shrugs and claims he only offered support while everyone else absolutely shines, and she presses, so why isn't that realization calming you down? A teammate needles Vim for being so oblivious, like, how could he not see Camilla watching him, sighing because he's being dense again? Between bites, she swears that the guildmaster is totally, completely smitten with him. Vim demands to know where Camilla is, and when he hears she's probably stuck in the office cleaning up the fallout from the dive, his attention snaps sharp. Spotting his shot to talk to her, Vim shuts Hyde Mary down, then dashes off to track down the office. In her office, Camilla sits alone at her desk, pounding the keys of a typewriter like it's the only heartbeat in the room. She halts to scan her progress, praying she can cram through that paperwork before the day's over. She leans back and relives the day with a satisfied smile because that labyrinth dive was a total win, and Vim crushed it. She realizes, in her gut, that his input supercharged the whole team's power. It felt so natural, like her body had upgraded itself, like wings had suddenly grown on her back. She can't believe it. She just crushed a performance way past what she usually can, stepping into that rare feeling where her body hits perfect form. A hot, shaky breath slips past her lips as she soaks in the afterglow of that unforgettable, powerful rush. She can't stop wondering if replaying that power in her head could steer the whole team to new heights, or if it'd finally make perfect sense as training. With his help, she feels like she's finally about to smash through the ceiling in front of her. A thunderous knock at the door rips her out of her deep thoughts. From the hallway, Vim announces himself, and Camilla wastes zero time. She swings the door open and invites him right in. Vim burst inside, utterly thrown off, staring at herself still in her armor. Then she demanded, "Wait, what's happening?" Ignoring the cringe, Vim's nerves spike as she shakily shoves a stack of documents into view. He tells them this is the official guild report from the expedition, his formal, documented account. Camilla stares at the stack, frowns, and blurts out what the report is even about. Vim argued that once they'd struck a gold vein and pulled in outside participants, a report had to be made straight from his side. Camilla buys into his logic, flashes him a thankful smile, and instantly sees how useful his documentation really is. As she reads, it clicks. His report stitched to hers wipes out every problem she's been drowning in, but the sheer mountain of work hits her like a punch. Relief hits her like a tidal wave. She can finally finish her work today. She remembers him casually dropping that he used to hustle with odd jobs back in the Dragon's Wing Guild. Vim humbly said he took care of everything except the big battles. Plus, he even handled the accounting. Camilla locks eyes on him, frozen in stunned silence, as his impossible claim sinks in. He really managed everything. She snaps at the documents like they're crystal clear, then gets it all wrong, believing he set them up as leverage to squeeze more salary. She decides he hauled that report home to prove his value and make sure he's on Noct Libel's good side. She studies him for one beat and realizes that insecurity was just a mask, because he's been plotting this very move from the start. Refusing to let him outplay her, she steels herself and mentally steps up time to bring him into her circle. Vim freezes there, totally baffled, and calls out her name in a shaky, tentative voice, just to catch her attention. Camilla snaps straight to the point and dangles a wild offer. He gets a salary of 500 milk. Vim jolts his eyes wide, totally lost, and blurts out a confused, "Huh." She fires back right away, adding another 2,000 if he agrees to join, while making it crystal clear he can't back out once the gold deposits are in. Vim stumbles through the confusion, then flat out asks her what in the world she's even talking about. Camilla reads his confusion like a cover-up, thinking he's trying to mask his hand just to squeeze the highest price out of the deal. She clenches her teeth, refusing to let anyone steal them from her, no matter how ridiculous he is. She lays out a killer deal, 700 in rewards, plus a 3,000 special joining bonus. She sweetens the whole deal with a steady 600 milk each month, same as the big shots, and then tops it off with performance bonuses. Staring him down, she demands his final thoughts on the proposal. Camilla takes his silence for greed and demands to know if he wants even more, while Vim can't shake the feeling this whole negotiation is just a cruel prank. Clutching her plan tight, she doubles his old pay on the spot and pushes for every last detail exactly how much he made at Dragon's Wing. Vim stammered, trying to drag her assumption back because he wasn't even close to doing anything like 200 lei. Camilla thinks his hesitation is just a tough negotiator's move, so she stomps forward and jacks her offer up to a wild 2,000 days. Vim's voice shatters as he's flustered and trembling, but somehow he finally blurts the truth. His monthly salary is only 20 mercs. Camilla goes ice cold with disbelief. Her composure shatters as she blurts, "What?" At that ridiculously low number, Vin drops his gaze in shame and quietly confirms, once again, that his monthly salary really is only 20 merc. Camilla recoils in disbelief, yelling that the payment is even lower than what a newbie works at a general store. Forget an adventurer risking their life for it. She stares at his miserable face, and horror hits he's dead serious about those slave wages. Vim mutters, voice low and humble, that she doesn't need to strain herself for some big reward. He'd be happy with whatever she gives. He tries to slip out with some quick excuse, but Camilla cuts him off and screams at him to wait. Hold on, just a moment. She shoves the limit back at him again, stunned that the world only stamps his massive strength with a 20 merc price tag. As he storms out, she can't help but mutter under her breath, stunned that he got treated like that, and furious she can't understand why they fired him. Vim admits he has no clue why, and just like that, Camilla is left alone, drowning in pure confusion. Deep in the dungeon, the dragon's wing crew gets slammed by a brutal wake-up call about who they truly are as a party. They're fighting for every breath on the 35th floor of that labyrinth, desperate and not backing down. Monstrous shadows crawl over them as they sprint, their heavy breathing thundering through the pitch-black corridor. A screaming horde of goblins barrels after them, shrieks sharpening as they slam in on the retreating adventurers. The leader clenched his teeth because he really thought that once Vim was out of the picture, they'd finally coast into an easy, comfortable life as adventurers. He figured that with this new fighter in the mix, their formation would finally click and their wounds would heal like nothing ever happened. Delusional, he pats his own back and insists the grind is natural. Right before their promotion to a rank fully convinced, he'll waltz straight into the deep labyrinths. Reality rips his fantasy apart as he bellows at Nicola to heal them now, only to realize the healing output is dangerously low. He whips his panic toward Melis and demands, "Is your Doppelini spell finished yet?" His eyes blow wide with terror as the chanting won't stop, and he screams, "Why is it still going?" straight at his mage. Melis finally snaps out a flame veil, throwing up a blazing barrier between them and the monsters. The leader snaps his command, everyone follow him right now and get out fast, because the flames are keeping the enemy busy. The battered party staggers up the dungeon stairs, totally drained, with their morale shattered to the bone. The leader snaps at Nickel again, barking, "Why haven't you finished treating our wounds yet?" Nicola lets out a shaky apology, grips her staff tight, and admits she's just not feeling right. As she rushes in to apologize for being on edge, the leader glares at her with pure disdain, and his frustration keeps boiling higher. He forces a fake smile, thanks her, and tells everyone to cool their heads for a minute. He pushes himself and the whole team to believe that if Nicola finally recovers, they can claw their way back from this disaster. Desperation hits him hard, but he refuses to give up. He insists they can still fix this, even in their awful state. He decides they've got to nail down exactly where they are, then orders someone to spot a landmark so they can plot a route out far from the goblins. He whips around to Melis for answers, but she stares back with hollow, terrified eyes. Melis Dammers asked what kind of landmark he meant, and you could tell he was completely lost and completely clueless. He panics and fires off frantic questions to the others, begging them to know where they are, but Sophia shoots him down with a guilty apology. She doesn't have a clue. He swings his gaze toward the tank, begging for salvation. Then it answers with nothing but cold silence. It hits them all at once without their old support. They're totally lost with no direction left to follow. They slam to a stop and just stare, dumbstruck, at a solid wall that won't budge. The party is stuck, wide-eyed in a dead-end alley, while the goblin horde screeching closes in from right behind them. The leader's expression contorts into pure horror as the truth hits somehow they've marched straight into a death trap. Too late, he realizes they dragged their enemies right into the one place they were never meant to reach. A cozy vine-covered house sits peacefully in the sun, quietly hiding the dragon's wing party's base. Inside, one of their own hands her water to a bedridden comrade. She refuses flat out, then snaps back with, "Can I eat instead?" Sophia perches by Nicola's bedside, her voice tight with worry as she asks if he's really feeling all right. Nicola forces a shaky smile, shoots her friend a calm look, and quietly tells her, "I'm okay," then slips in a soft, grateful thank you. The door snaps open, and Melis jolts back. She gasps as Kronos strides into the room. Kronos strides in with a tiny plate in his hands, eyes locked on the bed, his face stone serious. He tells Nicola that Sophia peeled apples for her and offers the sweet fruit like a little act of love and care. He carefully feeds her a slice, and for a rare second, tenderness cuts through all the party's chaos. Kronos tells them to slow down, catch their breath, and stick together to keep everyone's spirits up. He admits to himself that the floor boss's injuries still won't heal, and he never imagined he'd get this wrecked on the 35th floor. Melis snaps back at the others, swearing Kronos isn't the villain, and she grabs the hit for the misjudgment, taking the blame on herself. The group gets swept up in the feeling tears spill out as they finally drop their guard and share a raw, emotional moment. They clump together in a tight group hug, squeezing out fear and sealing their bond as they vow to keep pushing forward. They huddle up, swear they'll grind harder than ever, and refuse to let this one brutal failure define who they really are. Later in the living room, the air feels suffocatingly tense, like the story can't stop replaying their doomed plunge into the labyrinth. A flashback drops the truth. Their plan was nothing but crude brute force, messy coordination, clunky map decisions, and constant chaos. Chaos crashes into their minds as the fight swallows them whole, and they scramble to throw a flashbang just to stay alive. They shriek for Sophia's help, scrambling across the dungeon floor like their lives depend on it, because they do. Back in the present, they give themselves a shaky little comfort. At least they weren't wiped out, and somehow they stumbled back alive. Doubt starts creeping in the second they realize it's almost impossible to believe this is the same Biran group that crushed a floor boss. That elf girl locks eyes on the table, and the suspicion in her gut keeps climbing like she can feel something is badly, terribly wrong with what's happening right now. She glares at the chaos of a desk buried under papers, remembering Kronos' demand to sort out the tasks the useless predecessor left behind. She still remembers him snapping that the guy in charge was incompetent, then pushing her to step in and clean up the mess. She'd promised to help carry the load, but once she starts scanning those documents, her face twists with sudden realization. She's blown away when she finds super detailed repair plans for the party house, full-on reports, and receipts so neatly organized they look untouchable. She digs up the supply delivery plans and can't believe how deep the paperwork goes. So thorough, it reads like a full-on thesis. She uncovers a map of every known level, packed with monster descriptions, and that blows up the so-called proof as a total lie. Horror hits her. She realizes the predecessor must have cranked through all that massive work completely by themselves, with zero help. She jolts the story in her own head, insisting the predecessor wasn't some help. Then Vim's face flashes across her mind like a warning. Rage surges through her the moment she grasps the truth, and she can't stop wondering what Kronos, the leader, was really up to this whole time. A flashback rips the curtain off Vim's brutal training. Kronos doesn't hold back, slashing him with a real sword. Chrono lands a brutal strike, and Vim gets whipped backward, screaming in pain, because this training feels less like practice and more like straight-up abuse. Chrono looms over the defeated boy, sneering down with ice-cold contempt, while Vim crumples on the floor, writhing in pain. He sneers that Vin can't even cut it as a training partner, and the kid just nods along, meek as ever. A healer coldly flings a healing staff at Vim, snapping that she's not doing it for him, she's just fixing the damage. She snaps, demanding to know why he can't finally be useful to Kronos, then lashes him with verbal cruelty while his body is still writhing in pain. Vim blurts apologies non-stop, his spirit shattered as he shrinks in fear before them. She snaps her arms across her chest and barks at him to get up the second he feels even a little better. Zero sympathy. Kronos towers over him, whispering that nowhere else would take him, and that he's so replaceable, they'll swap him out before his shadow even hits the floor. He roars that Vim better be useful or he's getting tossed out, locking in the same vicious cycle that marked every second Vim spent under his rule. The nightmare of his dismissal crashes back into his head, Kronos' shriek pounding through it, roaring for him to get out, and cutting him off with the words, "You're fired." He jolts awake, snapping out of that dark memory as it crumbles into the reality of his new surroundings. Up on the rooftop, Hyde Mary peers at him through a telescope, and with a heavy heart, she watches him keep getting crushed by nightmares about Dragon's Wing. Vim's moved into the guest house as a temporary member, stuck under a rule that bars any adventurer from officially joining a fresh party for the next 3 months. Hyde Mary stares at him with obsessive glee, practically buzzing, because having him this close makes it way easier to keep tabs on him. She relives how wild and dangerous her choices used to be, like sneaking into the Dragon's Wing base, and she can finally breathe, knowing she won't have to gamble like that again. Now she can keep a close watch on him with her full magical firepower, flying crests for signals and eavesdropping stones to listen in, no danger in sight. Under the moonlight, she can't stop giggling to herself, thrilled to watch his every move like it's her secret power. She carefully updates volume 105 of her Vim's diary and records his life with terrifying, no detail left precision. Vim's morning starts before the sun even crests the horizon. He kicks off his day with a power run across the guild grounds, shaking out every muscle before the chaos hits. Breakfast at the Nacht Livel restaurant is pure comfort food. Steaming boiled sausages, golden, flaky potatoes, and bacon so perfectly seasoned, it practically melts on your tongue. He spends his afternoon soaking up peace, juggling magic practice, fun hobbies, and deep dives into monster biology. After getting crushed by non-stop tasks at Dragon's Wing, he finally bursts out of that grind and gets the rare freedom to carve out time for himself. Hyde. Mary slips into his room to watch him doze off, gushing over his adorable sleeping face as she scribbles notes. She plugs in his latest biological stats, clocking his weight at 129,260 pounds and marking a pinpoint jump of exactly 0.21 from yesterday. Later, she engineers a chance meeting in the hallway, then greets him with fake shock, like it's pure coincidence and not a plan. She skips off with a grin after their quick chat, buzzing with the question, how many years has it been since she last got to be this close to him? Her senses flare, something feels off because Vim is doing something totally out of his usual routine. She spots that he's headed to the courtyard, and her mind races. Did someone lure him out there? Suspicious as hell, she snaps her eavesdropping stone on right away, desperate to catch what's really going on. Her face drains of color as the stone finally crackles to life, playing a woman's voice, breathy and apologetic, for waking them up so early. In the courtyard, Vim squares up with Camilla across a huge training grid. Camilla stands armored and ready, grips a wooden sword, and declares, "All right, let's start." Hyde. Mary leans over the roof edge, heart thumping with relief, and realizes, thank goodness, it is only Camilla training, not some romantic meetup. Camilla snaps on Enchanted, and a blazing, magical aura wraps around her as she kicks off the exercise. Hyde Mary peers through her telescope and spots it. Camilla's trying to master a training method built around Vim's exact enchantment style. He rushes in at full speed so his body can soak up the moves. Then he adds a weaker version of the enchantment until the high-speed movement starts feeling natural, and only then does he fire off the full spell to cement the muscle memory. Hyde. Mary watches with sharp focus, knowing this is the way to stretch your limits inch by inch. Camilla whips her sword through the air at blinding speed, eyes locked in, carving through the drill like it's nothing. With one savage strike, she detonates a shockwave that tears through the air, overflowing with terrifying power. Hyde Marie's hands start to tremble as she realizes Camilla slid into the exact same motion in just 1 hour, and then Camilla gets called a monster. Vim stares at the screen, hesitating hard should he jump in and correct her form. He calls out how her arm swings way too wild, then tells her to tweak the joint friction so her movements hit that perfect rhythm. He pitches a reverse enhancement one that clamps movement instead of supercharging it, and they all nod like, all right, let's try it. Camilla unleashes a brutal strike with the new adjustment, her blade snapping into motion with razor-precise control and crushing force. Vim stared as the dust finally settled, then fired off a question to his guildmaster. What did she think of the new modification? Swamped by pure emotion and victory, Camilla yanks Vim in close and crushes him in a tight, bone-jarring hug. Hyde. Mary stares through her telescope and, in silent horror, loses it as she witnesses the embrace up close. Camilla goes wild for Vim, screaming excellent and brilliant, while she claps like crazy and Hyde Mary just watches from a distance. Hyde Mary panics and tells herself to breathe, but jealousy flames up the second she wonders what Camilla thinks she's doing with her Vim. She tries to convince herself it's just emotions, but the second his arms get too close, she snaps and screams, no way, absolutely not. She's denying that intimacy with everything she's got. Camilla hugs Vim tight with a warm, glowing smile, while Hyde Mary just watches defeated, slapping a miserable 10 points on the whole moment. Camilla seizes the instant and offers to pay Vim to train Abel with morning exercises every single day. After lunch, Mark jumps into the guild recruitment push and sweeps in like, "Come on, let's grab a drink," just to keep himself locked in with the guild crew. Hyde Mary watches from her window and realizes Camilla is playing a smart game wrapping Vim in personal ties to lock him down before he can officially join. As night creeps over the city, the clock tower looms high, silhouetted against the sky as it darkens. Hyde Mary sits alone at her desk, pen tapping as she realizes Vim ditched her to go out for drinks with the guys. She crosses her arms, huffs like she means it, and swears she's got the common sense to respect Vim's privacy. She's not about to shadow him 24/7. The second she lets her imagination run wild, she's already seeing those guys and all the tempting trouble waiting in the local nightlife. At the tavern, Vice Commander Hans hefts a frothing mug and beams as he toasts Vim, welcoming him into the party like he's one of the gang. The tavern is roaring with waitresses flashing bold outfits, and the men grin ear to ear, soaking up every second of the wild, lively atmosphere. Mary crouches on a nearby wall, peering down at them, jaw clenched as fury boils because she's finally figured out this is that kind of shop. She jams her eavesdropping stone to her ear and fights through the roar of the crowd, seething because Vim keeps stealing glances at the girls. Back at the table, Hans tosses it out like it's nothing. Vim's from the very same city as Hyde Mary. Vim confirms the link and admits he's from Ryer Eifeldy, then drops the bomb that it's way out there, miles away from here. One of the guys points out that Vim's been craving this kind of adventure life for ages. Vim nods and tells him how, back when he was a kid, he devoured stories of heroes and dreamed day after day of ending up exactly right here. Hans remembers Monica telling him that Vim was dead set on becoming a mage. He spots it instantly. Vim's got a soft spot for the fairy tale magician, not some dusty epic hero. Vim nods hard, fired up, and rips through his memories, desperately trying to remember that story where someone transforms into a princess. He snaps his fingers the second it hits him, and he's like, "Yep, it was Cinderella all along." Guild members go wide-eyed, whispering in disbelief that the painfully shy boy is actually chatting like a normal person. The table explodes in laughter and warm cheers as everyone clinks drinks, swaps wild stories, and bonds like family. Hyde Mary leans at the window, watches the tender moment unfold, smiles sweetly, and murmurs for him to step in and have the time of his life. She softly warns him, "Don't drink too much, don't sleep past your wake-up." Then her anger melts away into a calm, loving warmth. Just when Vim steps out of the tavern, a crew of men hiding in a stone archway suddenly spot him, and they reel him in on the spot. They marched him into a singles area, totally brushing off his bewildered look at where they were taking him. Vim calls out that Mark is married, and the giant just shrugs it off with a lazy wave like it's no big deal. One of the men freezes for a second, like he's worried they shouldn't drag Vim into this conversation at all. They corner him and grill him about Hyde Mary. "So tell us, are you lovers, or is there something way deeper brewing?" Vim flips into full panic, flailing his hands like crazy while he blurts out, "We're not anything, just friends, I swear." Mary hides in the shadows, and when she hears his furious denial, her heart drops like a stone. Vim admits that Hyde Mary only treats him with kindness because she feels responsible for keeping him safe. The men stare past Vim, frozen in pure terror as their faces drain of every last drop of color. They freeze in terror, eyes glued to the dark figure climbing up behind that clueless boy. "Hyde." Mary flashes a fake grin and pops up out of nowhere, greeting them with an awkward, stiff, "Hey, what a coincidence." Vim demands why she's there, and she panics, stammering a flimsy excuse about a girls' night out nearby. She pivots in a flash, begging Vim to send her flying, and those terrified men panicking for their own survival gleefully shove Vim right into her arms. As they walk, Hidamari can't stop replaying that intense talk she has to figure out how to handle Vim joining the guild. She nods along, letting the truth hit her hard. So much has happened in just one single day. Vin walks right beside her, blurting out that nothing back in Dragon's Wing ever made him feel this kind of warmth. He flushes bright, whispering that it felt like he'd finally stepped into a real circle of friends, like it was the first time he'd ever belonged. Hyde Mary flashes a gentle smile at his joy, then tells him he absolutely nailed it tonight. Vim freezes at the praise, looking completely baffled, and asks what she means as they stroll down the quiet street. Mary keeps her feelings locked up, convinced that she's finally turned the tide and become a real bright spot in his life. In the lavish office of Naklibble, an investigator goes deathly still in front of the guildmaster so powerful it grabs everyone's attention the second he's seen. The man cuts in and tells you his name, Dominic, serious as stone, a top agent from the Adventurers Guild Investigation Unit. Camilla glares at him from behind her desk, suspicion blazing as she demands to know right now what he's doing in her sanctuary. Dominic blurts out that they need her help, then admits his unit has been running a hush-hush investigation in secret. Camilla leans in, eyes narrowed to slits, demanding he spell out exactly what happened. Dominic blurts out Vim Strauss's name, then straight up reveals he's a former member of the famous Dragon's Wing Party. Camilla takes in the name without flinching, then shuts it down with one sharp, curt reply. She flashes a knowing grin, chuckles under her breath, and tells the investigator, "Don't be silly." Dominic says her shock makes total sense, but he's still dead set on one thing. His conviction about the boy won't budge. Camilla blasts back, saying it's pure logic that Vim couldn't possibly have soloed a floor master on the 97th floor. Dominic fires back that the only proof they found on the boss was a cut made by Vim's machete, blowing up Kronos' whole claim. He insists VIM's report had 0 gaps, but says they still can't launch a proper open investigation. Camilla snaps to attention and yells that they're not just wandering the labyrinth, they're hunting its secrets, and the only proof that counts is the physical evidence. Dominic admits he can't shut the rumors down, but then drops the bomb that someone's deliberately stalling Dragon's Wing's push to A rank. He scoffs at the idea that 3 people who couldn't even lay a finger on the boss are being praised as heroes in Fielbron. He blurts out that he's the only one backing the idea that a lone fighter brought it down, then admits it sounds totally unreal, even to him. Camilla scans the reports, her approval sharp and absolute perfect, flawless, yet one tiny detail keeps poking at her nerves. She calls out that Vim intentionally scrubbed his own wins from the records so he wouldn't stand out. She clocks his modest personality and instantly buys it. Of course, he'd hide his real strength. Moved by the investigator's grit, she finally gives in and agrees to team up with their assessment of the new member. She decides she'll size up Vim's combat skills herself because she needs to see his real strength with her own eyes. Deep in the ruins, Vim slams the brakes on the party and pinpoints a pitfall trap 50 meters to the left. Camilla snaps at them without hesitation, instantly turning his warning into action and forcing the group to change course. Vim moves in silence, replaying the months he's spent with Naklibble and wondering, with his heart in his throat, whether he's truly getting his message across. He pictures his spot on the field, then breaks it down. His job keeps him between the vanguard and the rear guard, firing support exactly where it's needed. He realizes the teleportation array isn't hidden anymore, and he's stunned like the guild is openly trusting and valuing someone exactly like him. A warm wave of gratitude crashes over him as he realizes people finally see him and he's actually useful for once. Camilla suddenly snaps his focus by calling out to him, yanking him right out of his own internal monologue. Vim spins toward him, nerves rattling, and bluntly demands he prove his fighting skills right there. No hesitation. She demands a one-on-one duel, and Vim scrambles to dodge it, insisting he's already fought plenty of battles. He stammers that he only goes after small fry, then blurts out that he's too weak to put on a real demonstration. Camilla locks eyes with him and demands to know what he can do because the next labyrinth dive is going to be absolutely massive. Vim finally relents, realizing that if he proves he can handle a fight solo, it'll silence her fears and ease her worries about his safety. He snaps to a sudden threat, calls out a massive clay doll golem closing in from 140. He suggests they take it on together, turning to Mary and the others and begging them to lend a hand. Camilla plows right past his plea for backup, cheers him on anyway, and leaves him no choice but to swallow the reality he's going in solo. The air turns thick with dread as a towering enemy surges toward the reluctant adventurer. A massive clay doll golem looms over Vim, and its stone body throws a horrifying shadow that makes your skin crawl. Hide Mary shoves the screaming Vim ahead with raw strength, hauling him straight into the monster's path. Vim panics and screams that he might die, but his teammate brutally snaps that he should just go for it. Mary just shrugs off Vim's panic, smiling while she clamps her knife tight, like death isn't even on the menu. Vim snaps with resolve, blade thrusting forward while a fierce glare locks in, ready to take on the massive threat all by himself. The rest of the knacked libel party steps back, staring as that towering clay doll golem looms over the little enchanter. Hans doubts. Camilla, insisting that a clay doll is way too ruthless to face alone, even if he's got special powers. He makes it crystal clear even a seasoned B-rank warrior would get overwhelmed if they tried to face that monster solo. Hans tells everyone why Vim's talent is terrifyingly unique. He doesn't just train, he sprinkles tiny boosts into every muscle and bone, one by one. He breaks it down how stacking tiny boosts on exact spots, like the radius bone, adds up to a total power so wild it leaves every other grantor in the dust. He even admits it's theoretically possible, but he can't help wondering in silence, does Camilla really think Vim can take down that construct? As Vim tightens his focus and starts prepping his spell, Hans can't help but smirk because it's obvious their guildmaster is absolutely smitten with the kid. People always talk about what adventurers really are because getting a profession doesn't just come with a title, it hits you with a ritual that completely rewires your body. While most adventurers get bodies 10 times stronger than regular humans, the grantor profession plays by its own brutal rules. Vim looks totally drained as the narration hits you with the truth. Grantor's power is just a notch above normal humans, and using their art is brutally hard. Trying to boost yourself is seen as inefficient, and it almost never turns the grantor into something stronger than the other combat professions. The real advantage is simple, no physical changes to slow you down, so you're instantly battle ready, which is exactly why grantors are so damn rare. The clay doll slams its huge stone arm down like a wrecking ball, and Vim has to scramble, dodging for his life. Vim snaps on instant enhancements. Weimar surges to life, and in the blink of an eye, his physical power gets hit with a brutal double boost. The golem's fist crashes into the ground, but Vim rockets into the air in time, vaulting clear of the blast. Self-applying wipes out the delay of building an approval lane and then handing the orders straight to your teammate. Vim tweaks his enhancements on the fly, stacking boosts twice on body parts that normally can only handle one layer of magic. He clenches his jaw because he knows this is only a quick clash. His magic power is too low, so whatever he's doing won't last. A shockwave tears through the air as he rockets forward with explosive speed. Vim scrambles up the golem's back, teeth clenched, bracing for the savage recoil pain that always hits when powerful magic slams into a frail body. He freezes mid-swing, eyes bulging with shock, because this time there's zero recoil pain, none at all. With fresh courage, he slams on the instant enhancement Dreamar for a triple power surge, racing to figure out, did he actually get stronger, or is this pain just being postponed? He unleashes a brutal strike that shatters the golem's rocky hide like it's nothing. His blade hacks straight through the stone defense as he hammers the massive construct with non-stop strikes. Vim's boosted strength smashes into the golem's arm. Boom! Shattering it to pieces and blasting stone debris through the air. As rocks rain down, Vim catches the magical core in his sights and locks onto it with razor-sharp focus. He hits the core with one crushing strike, and the massive clay doll crumbles instantly, collapsing into a heap. The massive brute collapses, its giant frame crumbling into a scatter of harmless rocks, defeated in mere seconds. Dust swirls over the wreckage as the lone enchanter blasts the massive threat into helpless rubble. Hans freezes in disbelief, stammering to Camilla that he only caught a glimpse. Because it happened so fast, it vanished in an instant. The other guild members look totally stunned, firing off the same question, is the fight already over? Because they literally looked away for 1 second. Hans zooms in on Vim's feet, breaking down the movement in his head, and one thing hits him fast for pure speed. Vim is already built different, top tier in Fielbron. Vim throws out a quick apology for wasting too much time, and Hans immediately panics, vigorously denying it as sweat pours off him. Hans heaps praise on him as totally incredible and unbelievable, but Vim twists the shock into sarcasm somehow. The rest of the party bursts in and their faces light up with pure awe, then twist into total confusion at what they've just seen. Camilla locks eyes with him and drills into his identity. Who are you? Right then, Hyde-Marie shows up with a laid-back greeting. Hyde-Marie tries to say they're both from the same hometown, but Camilla shuts it down and makes it clear she's not fishing for his background. The guildmaster locks eyes with her brand new recruit, instantly recognizing that the boy in front of her is straight up unshakably strong. Vin comes sprinting in, grinning like the world just got better, shouting for everyone to hide Mary as he finally slams back into his party. He can't stop grinning. He tells you he got a little reckless today, and somehow the outcome feels way better than he expected. He finally admits the adrenaline's drained away and his body suddenly turns to jelly, wobbling out from under him. Camilla watches him with a grin, like she can already tell he's acting more like a green adventurer hunting his first monster than a battle-tested vanguard. She clocks his crushed confidence and realizes it won't budge, even with all the wins stacked up like his real fighting skills are still locked away. Camilla stares at his real smile and realizes he hasn't been secretly hiding his true strength out of guilt at all. She's left totally stunned, staring at his wild swings in confidence, like she can't possibly figure out why he can't stay steady for even a second. Mary slips a calm hand onto Vim's shoulder and tells him to chill, because his excitement is running way too hot. Vim sputters in a full-blown panic, blurting whether he's been saying weird stuff, while his excitement rockets way past control. Shaken by his own outburst, he slaps his hands over his face and rides the wave of pure embarrassment, horrified at how little composure he's got. Hide. Mary grinned at him and practically bragged, saying taking down that clay doll solo was pure genius. Vim rubs his arm, looking sheepish as he admits, I can only act reckless because you've got my back. He tries to spell out the damage, admitting his body always pays for this kind of recklessness afterward. Hyde Mary barrels in mid-self-diagnosis and points out the glaring thing. He doesn't look like he's in any pain whatsoever. Vim freezes on the spot, stunned because if he used a triple boost, he should be wrecked, utterly drained of magic, and yet something just doesn't add up. He glares at his own hand, stunned somehow. After that brutal fight, his magic power is still there. He starts wondering if he's really getting stronger. Then the shield squad swoops in and readies to hoist him up, cutting his thoughts in half. The squad hurls him skyward with roaring cheers of "Keeve ho!" while he flails around in pure panic. Hyde Mary stands there, smiling warmly at the celebration, and it hits her this time. The world finally sees just how great Vim really is. The bare-faced wooden roof of the naked Libel party house soaks up the sunshine, its shingles cracked and worn down by the elements. Inside the armory, Monica stands alone by the window, eyes locked on the courtyard, as racks of swords and shields tower around her. Simon barges into the room, closes in on her, and asks, all curious, what she's watching that has her glued to the screen. Monica practically bounces as she points down to the courtyard, begging him to come see the crazy scene that's unfolding right below. On the training grounds, Camilla and Abel slam into each other with brutal weapon swings, while Vim watches from the sidelines, locked in and ready. Simon tells her to stop just staring and join them instead, saying they've been training like this every single morning lately. Monica stalls at the window, panicking that showing up could ruin their intense moment. Simon just laughs her worries away, teasing her that she's loud enough already, so it wouldn't change a thing. The three figures huddled in the courtyard, faces split between hard-won satisfaction and bone-deep exhaustion after that brutal bout. The sparring match ends, and as the dust swirls away, the fighters stand there, staring each other down in the open training yard. Camilla drops her weapon and snaps, telling everyone to shut down the session right there, right now. Abel drops to one knee, drenched in sweat and gasping, yet he stubbornly refuses to quit. He swears he can still push on. Camilla reminds him today's a rest day because tomorrow they're plunging into the massive exploration of the 98th floor. She whips her focus to Vim and asks, so, what did that final boost feel like? Abel grins ear to ear, yelling that it's pure perfection, wonderful, awesome, the absolute best. Camilla and Abel showered Vim with praise, shocked he could meet their every need so perfectly. Vim's face flushes under all that praise, and he blurts out that it's really him who's learning from the two of them. Camilla beams with heartfelt gratitude, thanking him for sticking with them all this way, despite the fact he's only a temporary member. She clenches her fist hard, unable to hide the thrill building inside her for the challenge that's coming. Her cheeks flush with pure anticipation as she can't stop thinking if she truly gives it her all right now. With this stronger version of herself, what kind of chaos is waiting next? Vim stands there in quiet awe, genuinely grateful that they always hype him up with compliments and somehow keep his spirits soaring. He tells them, "For tomorrow, we need a real reset, so take a proper break today." He slowly lifts a finger and pitches an idea to help them finally relax and get back on their feet. He asks if they want to grab a meal together right now, just to unwind and breathe. He throws out the name of a mouth-watering steak spot, and both warriors instantly nod along with huge, excited grins. Vim stammered through his words, double-checking just one last time that his invitation really wouldn't be a problem. Panic hits him like a truck. He freezes, then realizes he's got a study session with the reconnaissance team right this second. Camilla's smile drops into full seriousness as she tells him, "Forget everything, prioritize the reconnaissance meeting, because tomorrow matters more than anything." Vim blurts out a loud, panicked apology, then realizes he has to painfully take back the invitation he just blurted out. Abel's face fell, Camilla's smile stayed glued on, and Vim clocked it. He'd just shut them down hard. Abel snaps into action, trying to lift the mood fast, and asks if they can push morning training just a little longer. He thanks Camilla, then charges for the stairs, riding the training session's momentum on a total high. Camilla lets out a heavy sigh, realizing she went way too hard, and vows to down a stronger recovery potion today. Inside the library, Vim sinks into his studies with the reconnaissance crew, while Camilla watches them intently from outside the window. The team starts plotting their next scout run, and they point out the real reason Vim hit so clean he's using tiny bursts of magic, totally different from Simon's big, wide area approach. Since Vim showed up, they all agree the entire crew's been getting a major boost, especially because his trap scouting skills keep turning danger into advantage. They can't help but stare at the sheer self-discipline it takes to sharpen skills like that, and just by talking to him, they feel their own motivation ignite. Camilla watches the chaos unfold and knows one thing for sure. The members of Nacht Lebel are about to get fired up and pushed to improve. Her smile dies off as a cold stare locks in. She's thinking, that Vim kid is straight up creepy. She strides off down the corridor, suspicious that behind all that perfect praise he gets, something dark is hiding in the shadows. Two guild members huddle in a tucked-away corner, whispering like their lives depend on it, trading the hottest gossip while scanning the room for any eavesdroppers. She blurts out an apology for running her mouth, then admits she just couldn't help herself and had to spread the rumor because she knows how bad it is when people get wind of it. She insists that even with Hyde Mary's push, it's still hard to swallow, because with everything the others have busted their tails for, handing a grantor like Vim is a tough pill to accept. She compares Vim's sudden spotlight to the members who still haven't dived, and you can practically feel the resentment bubbling up over his unexpected inclusion. The talk turns to what could happen next, like his mere presence could spark a ripple of guilt he can't outrun. The man points out that Nacht Lebel is a brutal arena. Elite nobles and academy students claw at each other with ruthless intensity, all for one prize getting picked. While Vim studies nearby, the gossips hammer the idea that if someone got fired by another party, they shouldn't be allowed in until they're properly evaluated. They're betting that after tomorrow's dive, everyone will see his skills up close and their opinions will flip fast. Camilla suddenly steps in, looming over them, and their whispering cuts off. Instantly silence snaps into place and respect hits like a brick. A guild member rushes to Camilla and tells her the adventurer's guild rep is here, so she snaps, "Show them in," and commands them to be brought right to her. Those heavy doors swing wide, and the investigator snaps his gaze to flipping documents. Tension spikes in the room as he braces to speak. Dominic reads the report out loud, zeroing in on that insane claim that Vim wiped out a mud golem all by himself. He demands Camilla's confirmation, and she shoots back instantly. Yes, it truly was an incredible feat. Dominic pushes harder, firing back. "So, you're saying Vim might have wiped out the 97th floor master solo based on your read?" Camilla locks her fingers together and shuts that possibility down flat, cold, and unmovable. She shuts it down flat, saying there's no way he soloed the boss. She even admits his speed is top tier, like total overkill, and says his power is truly one of a kind. But right there, she draws the line. Dominic leans in, eyes locked as she confirms that Vim's combat power is basically equal to their top candidate core members. She admits everything could flip overnight if the boy is still holding back even more of his real power. Dominic can't shake the feeling that Vim is hiding something, while Camilla insists that his weirdness is about to get put to the test on their upcoming exploration. The investigator pushes to his feet, ordering her to rush back to the guild the second she figures out what that boy is hiding. He slams a chilling condition onto his demand, saying the whole report hinges on one thing: whether Vim crawls out alive after that dive. The story cuts to a cozy tavern where Hyde Mary shovels down food, and the whole vibe feels worlds away from that grim office. She talks with a full mouth between bites, squealing that Vim's sleeping face is just too adorable. And then finally, with a huge sigh of relief, she realizes his nightmares have stopped for good. The waitress tilts her head with that eerie smile, watching Hyde Mary reveal that Vim has even started talking in his sleep. The waitress tightens up with nerves, completely clueless how to handle the customer's relentless rambling. Hyde Mary clocked the waitress's dead silent vibe, then snapped at the cowwoman, straight up demanding what was crushing her spirit. The tavern owner steps in fast, telling the waitress she doesn't have to push herself to serve them right now. He spits out a grim update last week. A whole tavern party pushed into the 98th floor, and they just vanished. No trace. Nothing. Hyde Marie yanks her hand away from the food, and realization hits her face as the brutal news sinks in. The story makes it clear small crews often recklessly sprint straight into the front lines of exploration, chasing glory like their lives depend on it. Most of these poor souls end up as corpses or just straight up disappear, swallowed whole by the merciless wilderness of the unknown. The owner lets out a heavy sigh and admits it's heartbreaking. But that's the price of adventure. Every fighter faces death every day. So, you'd better be ready for it. Hyde Mary slams both hands on the table, smashes the silence, and yells that she's grabbing the waitress a drink just to lift her spirits. The waitress snaps her eyes open at the offer, shocked because it's almost unheard of for that stingy mage to suddenly pull out generosity. Hyde Marie grandly leans in and declares this drink is a gift from a future executive candidate, then tells her to just take it. The air flips instantly when the waitress slides in a huge tankard of beer. She cheers and clinks it back with her benefactor like it's the start of something unforgettable. Hyde Mary shrieks when she spots that massive glass, and it hits her in an instant she's been outplayed. She starts crunching the numbers, grumbling that if it's priced like a normal drink, then I guess she can live with it. Chaos erupts when Hyde Mary snaps at the waitress for cheating her, and while everyone else laughs at the cow demon and that tiny mage, the whole place spirals out of control. Hyde Mary bursts into hearty laughter with the waitress Greta, shocked to realize she hasn't laughed like this in ages. She rages against the accusation of stalking, yelling that her name is Hyde Mary, while Greta keeps poking her with cruel nicknames. The vibe flips to pure dread as Greta confirms Hyde Mary is set to plunge into the terrifying 98th layer tomorrow. Greta begs her to come back safe with Vim, but Mary Huff just smirks, like surviving is something she can bank on. As she strides off, the story hits like a punch. Someone laughing today could be gone from the world by tomorrow. Deep in the dungeon, a party's screams tear through the dark as they finally realize they plunged too far and they scramble to retreat before it's too late. A nightmare monster crashes the battle, rips through their lines, and they shriek the names of their dying comrades as everything falls apart. The dungeon floor drinks in blood as the adventurers get cut down one by one in the choking dark. The sole survivor scrambles through the stone corridors in full panic, her breath ripping out in ragged gasps of pure terror. She huddles in a dark corner, shaking like crazy, clawing for any way to disappear as the nightmare closes in. Behind the unsuspecting girl, a grotesque shadow with countless eyes surges up from nowhere, and its eerie chirps lock the fear in her bones. The monster drops in for the final kill, snuffing out the last flicker of life from the doomed party. A towering clock tower looms against the blazing sky, roaring the city awake as an enormous day finally begins. A towering parade of nacked Liebel members stomps down the cobblestone streets, their banner snapping high above perfectly disciplined ranks. Townfolk pour into the streets and lean out of every window, screaming and roaring as Hans and Camilla step into the spotlight, and they yell at them to give it everything. Vimwalk slinks up behind the giant armored figures, suddenly feeling tiny and nervous as he scrambles to disappear in the intimidating crowd. The streets are buzzing like a full-blown festival, because the city is kicking off the guild's massive investigation. Vin shoots a shaky look at the crowd, freaking out inside like, is everyone watching this insane spectacle too? He halts mid-sentence, guilt stabbing his chest as he realizes he's still calling his old Dragon's Wing party members everyone. He frets over whether their wounds ever healed, because days have gone by and he hasn't heard a single word about them. He snaps his head side to side and shouts at himself that, for now, he's officially in Nacht Libel. He shuts down the noise of the past for good and tunes in to the roaring cheers swirling around him. Bystanders gawk at the massive operation, wide-eyed as they realize the guild has mobilized every one of its 122 members. In the middle of the crowd, two guys trade whispered rumors about a mysterious provisional member about to crash into the elite ranks. With a face full of shock, one man blurts the recruit's true identity. Turns out he's the Grantor magician, Dragon's Wing fired. They're whispering that adventurers can't stop talking about him, and the rumor is clear, he's crazy skilled. The man digs his fingers into his hair, seething with frustration, but the rumored magician's name slips away every time he tries to remember it. Inside the guild hall, Camilla strides up to the assembled troops and fires them up, reminding the frontline party they're the ones who run straight into danger first. She warns them that they'll most likely run straight into the floormaster and that his traps are ruthless enough to wipe out any newcomer who steps in. Her voice snaps through the air, promising that after you survive every danger, the ultimate glory is waiting, beating the labyrinth, and claiming it. The gigantic cathedral-like hall sits packed with rows of armed adventurers, all frozen in silence as they hang on every command their leader barks. Camilla declares this mission is nothing like the others, because this time they're gambling with their lives, diving into the unknown with no safety net. She tells them to steal themselves, ordering every single member to dump their fears at the door and surrender their wills. She screams at them to throw their lives away so they can keep their honor, guard their treasure, and protect the comrades right beside them. The whole guild surges forward, lifts their weapons, and screams in perfect unison, chanting, Nacht Libel of Fielbraun, with a deafening, unbreakable roar. Vim finally blunders into the chant with a late, awkward shout, and he looks totally lost, standing there with the hardened warriors. He breaks into a cold sweat when he realizes his timing is off. Then he can't stop feeling exposed, like his energy just doesn't hit the same. Hyde Mary shoots him a knowing glance, clocking every twitch as he scrambles to steady himself. They reveal the first layer of the labyrinth sits right under the guild, and then they move forward using the safest route they can find. The 98th floor rips open like a giant, wild nature sanctuary. Massive rocky cliffs shooting up everywhere, with eerie plants creeping through the cracks. Vim tilts his head, staring up in total awe at the sheer height of the space, like the ceiling is so far out of reach he can't even imagine where it ends. He reels off his frontline job in his head, boost the team with enhancements first, then jump in to scout the area whenever trouble calls. Responsibility crushes down on him as the truth hits if he slips. The whole operation grinds to a halt. Abel clocks the worry on his face and gently asks the pale boy if the mission has him feeling nervous. Vim swears he's fine, but the second he tries, he vomits straight away, and Abel wastes no time calling it out, because yeah, he's definitely throwing up. Abel swoops in to comfort him, reminding him he's got a spotless training record, while Vim grits his teeth and runs his complicated code through his mind just to steady himself. Vim suddenly turns to Abel and demands he trust him too, leaving the swordsman totally blindsided by the audacity of the request. Abel's cheeks flame red as he blurts out that he'll protect Vim at all costs, even if it means battling a floor boss. He instantly regrets that outburst, slams his face into his hands, and blurts out an apology for saying something so ridiculously cheesy. Abel panics in his own head about going too far, while Vim just stares in shock, totally thrown by the sudden turn. He can't stop wondering if what they've built is more than just training, because they talk every day like it's no big deal, and that's starting to feel like real friendship. Vim snaps out of his spiraling thoughts by quietly blurting his own name, just to yank himself back to the moment. Vim stammers through his words, scrambling to ask Abel out for a meal next time, and meanwhile his face burns with embarrassment at how bold he just sounded. When you stare at the dungeon entrance, something feels weirdly welcoming in the air, or maybe it's just the wind screaming through the stone. Vin jerks back in fright when a bug suddenly appears, then blurts out that every time he steps into the labyrinth, weird sounds start hallucinating in his head. Abel grins as he accepts the meal, then snaps into action and orders the frontline team to lock in the bident formation right away. The party marches straight into the massive entrance of the 98th floor, stepping onto a wild landscape of strange plants and jagged rocky ground. Vim slammed his holographic interface to life, and the screen flashed with enemy intel pinpointing a deadly bee hydra head. He studies the creature's data and realizes this exact species can't survive unless water's close by. Vim's eyes swept the damp walls and the bird-like creatures, and he figured the odds were sky-high. Water veins had to be lurking around here. Vim barks precise orders. Bettina, cover the left, while he charges the right and slips underground to scout. He snaps a warning to the mapmaker. Watch your step, this road they're following is slowly sloping downward. The teammate nods and accepts the advice, then confirms the slope as the whole group creeps forward with white-knuckle caution. Vim's fingers ripped across his holographic interface, snapping the data into place with practiced speed. He mutters those intricate coordinates under his breath, and his mind spins through grid calculations like he's hunting a secret map. Abel stares in awe as he realizes Vim isn't just doing the job. He's pushing hypotheses and running verifications way past anything he was assigned. Vim stares at the glowing map like it's a lifeline, his fingers snapping along the lines as he dives deeper into the structure's secrets. He crunches the numbers and realizes that a map this exact could skyrocket in price. His work isn't just good, it's about to print money. Panic crashes in as he overthinks every magic move, spiraling into a non-stop thought loop. This is bad. The pressure in his head turns into a body-breaking force, and he crumples on all fours. Then he vomits hard across the dungeon floor. A teammate tells Vim to stay hydrated, but Vim waves it off like it's nothing, swearing progress is sailing smooth because of everyone. Right as he sinks into his self-deprecating spiral, a notification suddenly blares telling him the leader is calling, ripping him out of his own head. Camilla nods and confirms his gut check. There's a huge hole up ahead, and she backs his analysis without a doubt. She waves them over to a better spot, pushes the plan into motion, and starts sizing up the situation like her next move depends on it. The whole crew huddles around the map, swearing that the water scent can only mean one thing: a lake or a river waiting up ahead. Camilla grabs Vim's attention and demands he test the water quality because if it's safe, they'll refill their supplies and press on. Vim plunges into a water test and declares it safe, pointing to a rare butterfly that only survives in spotless, clean conditions. Camilla takes the report with a satisfied grin, declaring the briefing officially over unless someone else has something to add. Vin fidgeted beside Abel, visibly swallowing his worries as he fought to keep one scary concern from spilling out. Abel clocks his unease and presses him to the point, asking straight up if something's still wrong. Camilla demands he just blurt it out, while Vim starts ticking down, shaking and stammering in full panic until he finally forces the words out. Vim spots a strange terrain glitch. This path was heading downhill, but now it's suddenly tilted into a gentle uphill climb. Camilla pauses, brow furrowing as she weighs it natural ground, or a trap built to swallow them whole. Vim lays out the nightmare scenario, screaming that if the uphill climb keeps going, water could surge in and trap them inside. He paints a terrifying scene trapped in a brutal labyrinth, getting ambushed by the boss as their entire back is buried underwater. The soldiers mutter with growing unease, and Vim's panic explodes. He sputters apologies for raising a mirror, like he's terrified of what might happen next in that what-if nightmare. He stammers out an apology, panicking everyone he stirred up, then bolts back into his own insecure shell. Camilla lets out a heavy sigh and asks, with real bite, how many times they're supposed to relive this brutal loop of self-doubt. She leans in and tells him, don't hold back, because that quiet, introspective side of him is exactly what's going to fuel his growth. She flashes him a warm smile and tells him, clear as day, that he can live his life his way too. Vim's cheeks burn red as she blurts out a heartfelt thank you, accepting every kind word like they mean the world to her. After that, the investigation runs like clockwork, and the narrator leans in to tell you no huge monsters show up for the rest of the mission. Camilla scans the situation, and the moment she checks the numbers, she knows that this labyrinth dive is already locked in profits guaranteed to stay in the black. She adds that more gold veins were uncovered too, and it proves the mission just hit jackpot financially. She points out that the progress is running so smooth, it instantly raises red flags with them. She blurts out that it feels too perfect, like something's playing them, dragging them deeper and deeper into the labyrinth. Even with all the doubt swirling around her, she's adamant they've already pulled off major results, and the dive is set for next week. She declares they can't turn back now, even as a nagging worry about that slope keeps creeping in. She insists they can't turn back just because it feels unnatural, and she reminds everyone sharp, clear, and relentless that they are naked. Unlike her, she warns them that if they turn back now, they'll accidentally start charting the area into something dark and cursed, like a map that shouldn't exist. Another voice jumps in, admitting no sugarcoating that this is exactly what the dark side of Felbrun really looks like. Camilla explains how adventurers forge dark maps by blasting vital info as they travel, until the second they finally run out of lives. She points out that with the cost of life so brutal, these maps get sold for insanely high prices. She warns them if they walk away before the investigation is finished, the craving for those dark maps will spike out of nowhere. She draws a hard line. You can't, under any circumstances, walk away from a massive investigation halfway through. She declares that they take pride in dodging situations like that, and she slams home how hard the guild is committed to doing everything at the highest level. She steps up and blasts the news they're building an elite advanced team to storm ahead and push through. She breaks it down bluntly. Once you weigh the risks, this is the smartest move to cut the danger to a minimum. She fired them up, telling them they were only a little more away from finally stepping into the Great Hall. Guild members huddle in tight clusters, whispering like, "Who's it gonna be?" Because this mission is pure danger. They say there's only one way this kind of mission gets handled by the elite of NACT Libel. Of course, a huge screen blares a bold announcement. The next 6 people are officially in the advanced team: Monica the Mage, Abel the Tank, and Hans the Swordsman. Boom! The first 3 members are finally revealed, and there it is, the last 3 names on the list: Vim the Granter, Hyde Mary the Sage, and Bettina the Mage. Beneath the Naklibble banner, a massive probe to crack the 98th floor kicks off in the dead of night, swallowed by a dark, mysterious cavern. A 6-man advance team charges out to grab water sources, then barrels toward the Great Hall with their hopes blazing. Vim suddenly finds himself dropped into an elite squad he doesn't understand, staring in disbelief as he wonders how he even belongs among these deadly capable adventurers. A magical chant tears through the air, and the spell enchanted snaps to life right on the spot. The party jolts to a stop in shock, spinning around as the magic finally locks in. They instantly feel their bodies go weightless, and they can't help but gasp at the sudden surge of power. Monica tells them she turbocharged her speed to slam into the Great Hall fast, and she even offers extra combat buffs if the fight turns nasty. Monica finally slips into the magic and, flooded with emotion, grabs Vim's hands only for him to blush and fumble his way through trying to dodge her heartfelt gratitude. Jealous rage hits Marie like a lightning bolt. She screams at Monica to back off and stop clinging to him. Monica shoots out a sweet, fake innocent, "What's wrong?" Then she intentionally tacks on that cutesy Chan to Marie's name. Marie snaps back at him, yelling for him to ditch the honorific and stop playing all buddy-buddy with Vim. Monica pouts with playful attitude, asking if they're not really friends, while Marie glares daggers straight at her bust. Marie snaps that they're enemies, then calls Monica Cowwoman B right in front of the mage, leaving him baffled by the insult's exact wording. The leaders shot them sarcastic thanks for getting along, then praised the patients, while the girls immediately started bickering again. Pivoting to business, the leader lays out the route to Bettina and makes it clear he trusts her skills, even though this is the first time she's joining a team mission. She confirms the plan, take the shortest route, and dodge fights at every chance. Bettina swears she'll give it everything, then tells Vim, "If you've got the power, back us with recon." Vim's sprint finally breaks him. He hurls right onto the floor as one of his teammates rushes over with water. As the chaos explodes around them, the leader lets out a heavy sigh, because right now, he feels less like a commander and more like a teacher, stuck supervising rowdy kids. Huge frogs loom in silence as the party rockets past their nesting grounds. Blazing forward, the leader can't help but wonder if this insane speed is all thanks to Vim's enhancement. He clocks it immediately. No matter how fast they're flying, not a single one feels even winded, so they're about to burst into the Great Hall in record time. Spotting a shadow up ahead, the leader yells, "Monster!" and whips the team into a brutal right turn. Before he can even finish his thought, a scout slams in and snaps his wrong read into place. This threat isn't real. It's a trap. She pulls out the trap spotting skills she learned straight from Vim's recon data. When he finally handed over the data, she froze because the sheer mountain of information he dropped in her lap was way more than she expected. After crunching the numbers on trap types, she's dead certain this fight is unavoidable because that monster's already lurking up ahead. A massive scaled beast erupts from the darkness and slams into the leader, snapping him straight into a brutal fight. The leader snaps out of the way with ease, slipping right under the monster's huge lunge like it never even touched him. His blade crashes into the creature's hide, but the second he feels those scales, he grimaces like trying to cut through stone. Monica strides forward like she owns the moment, orders the leader to back off, and dares the monster to come for her. Vim panics, screams for everyone to hit pause, and worries she'll push it too far and ruin everything. Monica snaps to attention, and her staff rushes in loading a gigantic magical charge like they're seconds from impact. A whole swarm of magical entities erupts around her, chattering wildly and lining up for launch. Monica's eyes light up with raw power as she officially gives Vim's enhancement integration the green light. With frantic keystrokes, Vim tweaks the interface, dialing in the speed drop and range just right to cast the spell safely. With everything locked in, Monica blasts the enchanted spell with everything she's got. She squeezes off the Dunning-Kruger electric blast and levels it straight at the beast. A storm of magical missiles crashes into the monster, detonating into a non-stop, ear-splitting barrage of explosions. The creature gets smashed to nothing by relentless blasts, and it crumples under a torrent of unstoppable magical firepower. The massive creature howls in pure agony as wave after wave of magical attacks rips through its defenses right up to the moment it's finally wiped out. One teammate swears every single shot landed dead on, and the next member just stands there, shell-shocked by how insane that accuracy is. Monica stares at the outcome, grinning as she explains how she tuned her spell's range just right to pull off that razor-precise hit. Turning to Vim, the leader demands, "Can you enchant a weapon?" And Vim nods yes on the spot. No hesitation. Swordsman Hans gives the request a green light, then nods like he's ready to throw Vim into battle and see how those enhancements really hit. Hans demands a blade that's stronger and harder without getting heavier, and Vim fires off the enchanted spell right away to make it happen. With his sword blazing hot with magic, Hans strides forward again, confidence surging as he squares up to the rest of the threat. He vows to hunt the enemy to the ends of the earth, clenching his enchanted weapon until his knuckles ache as he sets himself to strike. Hans unleashes a brutal technique. He snaps off a Mage at Geary Crosscut and finishes the job for good. The strike hits with maddening ease, and Hans jerks in shock, gasping as his blade slips cleanly through the target like it had no resistance. While the rest of the party erupts in cheers, Hans freezes staring at his weapon, sweat pouring down his face, utterly stunned by how it all went down. He realizes the sharpness is way off, and it hits him. Vim's enchantment is making his blade cut through thin air like it's nothing. A teammate bursts out praising the achievement and goes, "Yeah, it makes total sense. Camilla respects Vim's skills that much." Suddenly, a piercing shout explodes in the air, screaming that another enemy is dropping in from right above them. A grotesque fish-like monster crashes down on them out of nowhere, and the whole party freezes in shock at the sudden ambush. The moment it hits, the Draymar spell snaps to life, driving a triple boost enhancement to smash back the surprise attack. That massive monster throws its jaws wide to gobble them up, but Vim is already in the air, sword clutched tight, rocketing in to intercept. With a lightning-fast slash, Vim whips his enchanted blade straight across the creature's body, carving deep into its scaly hide. The monster gets split clean down the middle. Its massive body shatters into pieces as Vim drops safely onto the ground. Hans thanks Vim and gushes about his killer performance, saying the outcome was exactly what he'd expected. Vim lets out a shaky laugh, trying to brush off the damage by saying it's no big deal, since the opponent was just small fry. Hans squints at the description, shaking his head. He insists this thing looks like a brand new species, and there's no way it's weak. A thunderous rumble rolls through the cavern as the battlefield's remains finally settle onto the floor. In the wreckage, a locket lies torn open, flashing a smiling portrait of a young girl inside. The group finally connects the dots. Those brutal relics were dropped by an adventurer who plunged into the dungeon ahead of them. Han claims they don't have time to dig graves, but he still demands they stop and pray for the fallen. Vim watched the crew like a hawk, stunned that every single one of them thought on their own and still moved as one, keeping travel clean and fights in perfect sync. While they pray side by side, he can't help but think how his old crew, Dragon's Wing, never managed to move like this smooth, synced, and perfect. That moment hits hard and it finally sinks in. He's really in an awesome, badass party, and he belongs. The moment they're ready, the whole crew bursts forward again, sprinting through the rocky cavern corridors. They burst out of the tunnel, and Vim cranes his head, staring across the endless open land ahead. The party finally reaches their destination, gripping the shield of Noct Libel as they stare out over the breathtaking landscape. They huddle at the edge of a massive underground lake, dipping their eyes into the water, then scanning the whole area like they're hunting for the perfect opening. Hans nods and confirms it. Just like Vim warned, they've tracked down the Great Hall, and the water looks perfectly safe. He cheers Vim's work one more time, then grins and says this spot is the perfect relay point for the 98th floor. The whole team erupts with celebration, showering Vim with praise for the game-changing role that made the mission succeed. Hans tries to thank him for real, but Vim trips over his words and blurts that he's only there to help. Marie cuts in, asks why he's always soaking up self-deprecation, and tells him straight up to just take the compliment. Vim tries to defend himself, insisting in a low voice that he doesn't actually enjoy tearing himself down. Marie snaps back with biting sarcasm, smirking that if she really invited a fired adventurer to an A-rank party just to hurt her own organization, then she'd have to be the idiot. Vim lets out a firm nod, fully agreeing that Hyde Marie nailed her assessment. Abel turns to him with a calming smile, calling him Vim-san with full respect. On the underground shore, Abel stands there while Vim thanks him, and he shrugs it off with a breezy, "You're welcome." Vim stops dead for a second, drinking in the calm beauty of the underground lake and the looming weight it carries. Once the area is safe, the expedition's main squad finally storms in to team up with the advanced crew. They figure the water levels are a loud hint that floor traps in the Great Hall are unlikely. The commanders round up the troops and shower everyone with praise for a mission executed perfectly. They officially mark the Great Hall as their relay point, then slam down camp there for the night. Tents snap into place beneath those towering rock giants as the crew finally sinks into rest under the vast, cavern-lit sky. Vim sits all alone outside his tent, staring into the dark, and sleep won't come because the terrain feels wrong in a way he can't shake. He frantically flips through his notes, trying to wring sense out of the messy geographical data he just collected. He remembers the slope kept messing with him, dropping once, then surging back up until it finally spit him out at this hole. He stares into the dark above and sees the ceiling shoot up forever, like an endless wasteland carved from shadow. Panic rockets through him when he clocks it. An avalanche of water is about to slam shut their exit route and trap them for good. He pictures a nightmare where the entire room lifts off and drifts away, trapping them with nothing but certain, suffocating drowning. Panic clawing at his chest, he forces himself to breathe, telling himself they found 0 water traps and already charted the routes. He tucks himself into his blanket, tries to convince his own mind that panicking over a sudden flood is pointless and totally illogical. Just as he's about to drift off, sudden wet drops slap his face and yank him awake. He snaps his head upward in pure panic, and then boom, he sees the rain blasting straight down from the cavern ceiling. Panicking, he yells for everyone to wake up right now because the labyrinth is flooding from the inside with rain. He stares at the pounding rain in total shock, mind reeling, because this disaster hits out of nowhere. Chaos bursts among the adventurers as they shout that this weather makes no sense, demanding to know why it's raining inside the labyrinth, and praying it isn't some cruel trap. Vim stands frozen in the rainstorm, shaking as panic hits him. He can't stop asking what's happening, and whoever could have seen this disaster coming. The truth hits them hard. Night fixates on the roaring flood path, and panic kicks in as the water surges upward in seconds. Panic crashes in as the soldier shrieks. The path is sealed, and there's no turning back now. The commander instantly roars for everyone to stay steady and stand their ground right as he hears the grim news that the southern passage has already been swallowed by floodwater. He lays out their desperate plan, saying that if this turns into the worst-case scenario, they'll have to hunt for a way out while they brace to fight the floor boss. Camilla strides forward, eyes blazing, and screams at Nacht Libel to get ready. This crisis demands they prove they're worth something. The squad clenches their weapons like lifelines, steel in their eyes as the shock of that sudden flood finally starts to lift. When the call to action hits, the whole crew yells back in perfect unison, "Boom!" Their morale rockets right back up. Vim watches the whole transformation unfold, stunned, because that power turning raw fear into iron resolve is exactly what makes Nacht Libel truly incredible. He's so hyped by their power that he slaps his own cheeks, fires himself up, and decides he'll do his part too, even if it means getting sent out. Scouts burst back from every side, shouting that the west, south, and east passages are still totally clean. No anomalies anywhere right now. The radar operator locks onto his screen, sweat drops beating on his forehead as he fights to decode the readings, while the chaos rages all around him. Then he jerks his head up in pure terror, shrieking that something is charging in from the north passage. He tells them he can't see the full picture yet, but he's sure the floor boss is closing in. The commander snaps into action, barking for the rearguard to fire on the spot, the moment Vim slams his enhancement magic into place. The mages and archers fall into formation with iron resolve, roaring that they're ready, because the volley is about to hit. Vim shuts out the storm, sharpening his focus for the brutal mental math needed to cast the enhancement spell right as the rain tries to shake his rhythm. He rips his magic to life, blasting vibrate and harden into play, so every incoming attack turns deadly. Magical energy surged outward, sweeping over the rear guard's readied spells and weapons like a roaring wave. In the blackness, a massive writhing shadow finally breaks through, and someone yells that the target is huge and nearly impossible to spot. The mages hurl the thunderstorm Gavator spear, and Vim cranks it up by tweaking its hardness, its vibration, and the air resistance. Enhanced magical spears streak through the cavern air, snapping with electric crackles as they charge straight into the darkness. A deafening blast detonates into the far wall, and the whole cavern lights up like it's been ripped open by pure impact. Even after the direct blast lands, the scout screams that the target isn't down. Then he shouts the readings are shifting, revealing an endless swarm of tentacles. A towering shadow rips through the smoke, and before anyone can breathe, someone screams that it's charging straight at them. The shield squad surges to the front with a thunderous roar, slamming their giant shields down to stop the incoming charge cold. Vim shoots forward and yells, "Enchanted!" as he slaps a defensive buff onto the front line right before the clash hits. The shields flare with a brilliant reflect spell, blasting back the massive tentacles that crash into them with bone-shattering force. The tank leader cackles like a lunatic behind his shield, daring the monster to charge them again and again. The commander barks an order. Hyde Marie light up the targets so they can finally see what they're up against, and she snaps into action without hesitation. She unleashes the flasher spell and shrieks that she can see its body as the cavern erupts in blinding light. Every adventurer's breath caught in sync as that blinding light finally blasted the truth, showing just how gigantic the monster looming over them really was. A gigantic, fleshy nightmare clings to the ceiling, staring down with a hulking eye as writhing tentacles churn beneath it. Its grotesque appendages writhe and twist through the air, splattering slime and water onto the flooded floor beneath. Soldiers gawk with horror, shaking as they blurt out, "Is this creature even real, or is it way too big to exist?" The commander snaps his attention to Vim, confirms he's the floor boss, then presses him for what he knows, what this thing really is. Vim shoots back that it doesn't match any floor boss he's seen before, saying it looks like a tiny sea cow monster. Camilla spots that the passage is still connected and instantly figures out that if this is some sea cow type creature, fire should cook it for good. Sensing that opening, the commander orders the rearguard to change plans on the spot and unleash fire magic right now. Monica rips into the air with a magical bombardment, screaming her spell as a blazing fireball rockets toward the beast dangling above. A male mage erupts from the inferno, bellowing as he strains, then blasts the battlefield with a roaring flamethrower torrent of fire. Hyde Marie charges into the assault and whips out scorching wind, blasting the flames higher until the heat digs deep into the monster's flesh. The fused fire magic crashes into that grotesque mound of tentacles, swallowing the creature in a wild burst of light and searing heat. The monster screams in agony as roaring flames burn into its body, and its giant eye bulges, shocked by the brutal hit. When the creature recoils, the soldiers erupt into cheers, convinced their fire-based plan is landing exactly how it should. Camilla snaps off rapid orders, pushing the front line to lock shields with the shield squad holding the line against the tentacles while the main body gets targeted. She orders the rear guard to team up too, then stresses one thing: intercept every hit and strike on their own to keep the pressure cranked up. The troops snap into unison with a thunderous shout, then immediately surge into the deadly complex formation. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Camilla tells Vim to stop wasting power, keep your enhancements only for the shield squad, and make their defense your #1 priority. The shield squad leader flashes a fearless grin from behind his barrier, then barks at Vim that it's go time to smash through and carry out their part of the plan. Vim locks eyes with him, sparks flying from his fierce determination, and he shouts back his understanding while he hones his magic. With the rear guard's magic blowing a path wide open, the frontline fighters burst through the gaps in perfect jaw-dropping coordination. They strike with ruthless hit and run precision, slicing into the behemoth's swinging limbs and draining its stamina step by step until it can't keep up. Vim watches the battle unfold, stunned by how perfectly everyone moves, like he's witnessing a grandmaster's chess game come to life. He realizes this is enemy territory and the rain is brutal, but somehow they're absolutely crushing the fight. Against all odds, Knacklibble takes full control, methodically wrecking the floor boss piece by piece. Vim can't believe his eyes at the raw power of a top-tier party, stunned that they can grind a boss this far on a first encounter. Right as he starts drifting in his own thoughts, Camilla blurts out his name out of nowhere, snapping his focus to what's ahead. He snaps his head toward her, stunned by the sudden laser focus and the raw intensity blazing in her eyes. Camilla snaps orders at him to push her power to the max. No restraint, no mercy. Then declares she's stepping in herself to end this fight for good. With a confident smirk, she locks eyes with him and tells him, like always, that she's counting on him to bring the power she needs. Vim shot back instantly, flooding his magical power into the spell and blasting it at full force to grant her request. Camilla formally triggers the contract. She loudly gives the green light to grantor Vim's enchantment, and that instantly kicks on the exact ICSA protocol. The surrounding soldiers burst into gasps and roars because their captain is stepping onto the battlefield himself. Vim tunes his magic to Camilla's exact wavelength, then slams Enchanted down to give her the perfect power-up for the way she fights. A blinding surge of light detonates around Camilla's sword, flooding the dark cavern as she plants her feet and prepares to unleash her power. Squad leaders are screaming for everyone to fall back and stay out of the way so they can clear the space for their captain's absolutely brutal attack. The monster senses the danger closing in, then rips into the air with a terrifying, ear-shattering roar as it braces to defend itself. Vim clenches his jaw, tense as a wire, because he knows bosses always pull out secret trump cards, and he's praying their plan to finish it in one clean strike actually works. Camilla grins like a warning sign, determined to smash the enemy with one brutal hit before it can even show what it's hiding. Power surging to its max, she snaps that it's time to see what their training is worth, and then she rockets forward. A flashback kicks in, showing one lone warrior grinding through intense training beneath the moonlight a few years back. Camilla hauls a monstrous steel roller across the stone courtyard, muscles screaming as she grinds past the point of pain. She drives herself straight to the brink, proud as hell that she can master both her body and her magic even as her limits scream at her. With a strained grunt, she heaves the training gear across the floor, jaw clenched as she refuses to let the crushing weight win. After finishing her 1,022nd repetition, she breaks down because the result feels just as identical as it always has. Her face contorts with pure anguish as she realizes her brutal efforts have gotten her absolutely nowhere. Frustration surges through her, and she snaps at the stalled training that's been holding her back. She makes a hard choice. If she can't sharpen her own blade as a warrior, then she'll throw herself headfirst into commanding everyone else. She swallows her warrior pride, accepts that this is the end until one fateful moment flips the whole world on its head. Right now, the troops erupt in wild cheers as their captain strides onto the battlefield, ready to slam the fight shut. As Camilla barrels forward, she realizes that every time Vim's enhancement repeats, the magic hits her in a totally different way. She feels that power sharpen and refine itself, then sink into her bones and muscles like it was always meant to be there. This new power lights a brand new spark of hope inside her, smashing every limit she once swore was untouchable. She stands face to face with the colossal monster, ready to rip into it with her freshly awakened power. With a sly little smile, she realizes Vim probably has zero clue what he's truly done for her. Vim keeps her eyes on his back, clueless that he's about to unleash a wave of deep gratitude from her heart. She reels from that first collision of fate, realizing that one spark with him flipped her whole destiny. Her eyes blaze with intensity as she realizes his magic didn't just revive her, it reignited her fire as a warrior. With a fierce shout, she unleashes her ultimate technique, calling the Kaya Jingwiri into being and ordering the power to surge forth. A brutal shockwave explodes outward the moment she unleashes her energy. A teammate stands there, mouth gaping in pure horror, realizing the power surging right now is way beyond anything she showed in the Wyvern battle. Vim spots the sky high ceiling and realizes it lets the captain unleash her abilities with zero space limits. Camilla rockets into the sky, blasting past the target and soaring overhead at jaw-dropping speed. She snaps back midair, sword cocked high, ready to crash down with a catastrophic strike. Stunned by how effortlessly she moves, she realizes her power is way bigger than she ever dared to imagine. Basking in that sweet calm, she tightens her grip and prepares to unleash the full force of her power. Soldiers shriek for everyone to back up. Even more terror grips them as they fear being trapped in the blast radius. The monster freezes in place, totally unable to keep up as the incoming attack tears through at an insane, devastating speed. Camilla rockets downward, yelling the first half of her technique, Kyojin. She seals the giri, cutting straight through the monster with a blinding beam of pure light. The massive beast cleanly rips itself in two, and Vim freezes solid, stunned by the sheer force on display. Camilla drops onto the water like a whisper, while the monster's split halves slam down behind her. A deep, bone-rattling hum rolls through the air as the giant corpse finally sinks and settles in the lake. The radar operator snaps, screaming, "It's not over!" And right when the calm finally hit, it all shatters. He shoots a warning that the target's biological response is still kicking, and Simon is already in motion. They barked the command to keep hammering the rings, and the mages instantly unleashed a crushing follow-up volley. A furious storm of magical explosions pounds the creature's remains until there's nothing left to survive. The operator stared at his screen, then finally leaned in and confirmed there was zero reaction, declaring their victory with zero hesitation. The whole army explodes into cheers, roaring like they just clawed their way to victory. They slam into a fierce embrace, shouting in pure disbelief, because they just pulled off the historic miracle wiping the floor boss on the very first dive. The soldiers go wild, roaring that they're the unstoppable NACT libel, then immediately start plotting a massive party for when they roll back home. While everyone's cheering, Vim just stands there in the rain, frozen, shaking, and trapped in a dread he can't break free from. Sweat drenches his face as he frantically asks himself, did the battle really end, or is he missing one crucial piece? He glares into the distance, mind racing. Could beating this floor boss really be that easy, even with the rain hammering down? He tries to talk himself out of the panic, insisting they smothered the threat before it could do a thing, but deep down, he knows it wasn't that simple. That nagging dread won't let go. He can't shake the thought that their lightning-fast win was all because the party moved too quick, but the weird weather still makes zero sense. His train of thought gets wrecked in an instant as he suddenly bolts forward and a teammate blurts out his name, totally baffled. Vim halts and whips around as Abel charges in, gasping hard from the sudden jolt of motion. Abel grabs his attention and hammers home the warning look, the waters surging upward at a terrifying speed, and this non-stop downpour is totally unnatural. As Vim locks onto his map with laser focus, Abel shoots him a worried look and asks what's really going on. Vim starts snapping the clues together, grumbling that the floor boss showed up and slammed into them the exact moment the rain kicked in. He blurts out, shaking, asking if a floor boss can usually bend the weather and summon rain. The moment it clicks, he slams his comms on, calls the captain at once, and tells Camilla right now that it's him. Vim warns that the waters rising is about to crank up semi-aquatic monsters into a frenzy more active, more vicious, and far more dangerous. He grimly says that while the party's movement slows down in the flood, the enemy will probably be blazing even faster. Camilla drives straight to the point, and with that, she confirms his assessment, because this crisis is nowhere near finished. She blurts out an apology for losing control earlier, praises how razor-sharp his instincts are, then orders a full retreat right now. She makes the call on the spot, declaring that as long as they survive long enough to report these conditions, this expedition has already succeeded. She fires the question at Vim. Do you already have a retreat plan, banking on his navigation skills to lead them out alive? Vim nods instantly and jabs his holographic map, marking a tight passage stretching northwest. He tells them this detour will eat up time, but it's their best shot and maybe the only way to slip past the flooding. Even though the plan is set, Vim's hands keep shaking like crazy and he can't stop himself from panicking, wondering why his body is freaking out so hard. The group huddles tight in the rain, and the moment they go from victory to retreat, morale instantly craters. A weird, heavy thud suddenly booms through the cavern, snapping the soldiers to a standstill as they clutch their weapons tight. The knights whip their heads around in panic, hunting for where that ominous roar is coming from as the rain hammers down. Bubbles burst across the water, and the soldier choked on a gasp as huge shapes surged up from the deep. A monstrous, sickening blob of flesh and tentacles rips through the surface, looming over the terrified adventurers like a nightmare made real. The creature finally drops the mask, full horrifying form, slime pouring off it, then glares down at the tiny humans like it's about to end them. In that split second, every single party member gets hit by the same horrifying truth. This is way worse than they ever imagined. With hearts dropping, they realize the monster they just crushed was only a pawn, and now the real floor boss is standing right in front of them. Massive splashes explode everywhere as even more shapes slam into view, boxing the group in from every direction. The party gets surrounded by a swarm of giant, worm-like monsters, each one the size of the boss, and they're barely managing to cut them down before the next wave hits. A soldier freezes in disbelief, stammering that the monster from earlier was nothing just some run-of-the-mill mob enemy. Camilla's palms go slick with nerves, but she clenches her resolve and blurts the truth. Maybe the 98th floor won't be a cakewalk after all. The cavern floor turns to a nightmare of despair as massive, tentacled horrors heave up from the water, squeezing in around the tiny band of adventurers. A stunned adventurer chokes on a gasp, staring in total disbelief, because the terrifying scale of what's about to crash into their world is way too huge to even comprehend. Panic crashes in the moment they stammer, begging anyone desperately what on earth they're supposed to do against odds like that. A scout shrieks that the rain is so brutal it's wrecking their sight, and he can't even count the enemies anymore. They finally get it. The storm is coming straight from the boss's power, and they're fighting to make their voices heard over the deafening roar of the downpour. A panicked report bursts in from the west flank, shouting that two massive mobs are barreling toward them. The east side jumps in right away, and with a chilling certainty, they confirm yes, two more giants are coming from that direction too. Terror peeks out as the South Guard roars that he's confirmed 5 more enemies are closing in on their position. Bettina tore into the north side report, screaming that they were boxed in from every angle, then pleading for orders, like her life depended on it. A soldier starts gasping and crying, screaming that everything's hopeless and yelling at them to just bolt for their lives. Camilla slices through the panic with a freezing stare, then barks for everyone to slam into a defensive formation right now. Her unshakable resolve jolts the panicked soldiers back to their senses, and they all snap their eyes to their captain. Camilla snarls at them to move, get into a defensive circle now, before the enemy slams shut the distance. She tells herself that this is what leadership feels like, keeping her cool, no matter how hopeless everything looks. The soldiers snap to attention and slam their shields together, forging a tight wall of steel to hold back the towering monsters bearing down on them. Giant tentacles crash down, and the shield bearers clench their teeth and brace hard sweat pouring as they hold the line against the towering giants. Inside the formation, soldiers huddle and whisper with shaking voices, terrified about whether they'll really have to fight because the path is blocked and retreat feels impossible. Doubt floods in as they wonder if even a knacked libel can slice through a floor boss and survive the swarm of mobs all at once. Vim's hands shake and sweat pours down his face as he frantically calculates their escape. Can they slip away before they're hunted, or will they have to fight as long as they possibly can? Then, bam! A heavy hand slams into his back, yanking him out of his spiraling thoughts, while a teammate shouts his name. His comrade snaps at him, yelling, "Don't look down!" and saying that gloomy face just doesn't suit him at all. Vim whips his head around and spots his teammates clenching their weapons with burning determination, already bracing to take on the impossible. When the tank leader flashed that confident grin, Vim's stomach dropped because he finally realized he was the only one losing his mind. Ashamed, Vim still grits through it, slaps his cheeks, steadies himself, and answers the call with a solid, no doubt, yes. He tells himself, "Sure, we can't promise a win, but we're not automatically doomed either." Seeing that nobody's been killed yet, he feels the tension crack, then realizes they still have enough strength to keep fighting. Vim rips away his own doubts, stares the chaos down, and vows they'll all crawl back alive from this living hell. He locks in on what he can do this second, then swears to carry out his role to perfection. Massive worms lurch backward, their grotesque bodies writhing as they ready a brutal wave of attacks. Camilla shrieks for everyone to fight back as the forest of tentacles crashes down on them. Without wasting a second, Vim screams the incantation, unleashing enchanted support magic that hardens his defenses. The shield bearers slam their fists to the ground, roaring in acknowledgement, teeth clenched tight as they brace for the crushing hit. The sky gets swallowed by a wild storm of tentacles as they crash down on the tiny defensive circle like a hammer. A soldier stares as the shadows creep in, stammering that the sheer flood of attacks is crushing him. Camilla bears a ferocious grin and screams a warning, right as those massive limbs crash into place. The front line buckles under the enemy's crushing blow, their shields groaning as they refuse to break. The impact slams through the ground like a war drum, and Vim drops into a low crouch, gripping his weapon tight as the whole world rumbles beneath them. While the assault rages all around, Vim yanks his dagger free, eyes blazing as a ruthless new plan ignites. The command blasts through the air, scream after scream, as the soldiers dig in with everything they've got, fighting to keep that defensive wall standing. The leader fires everyone up to hang tough because their survival hinges on keeping this formation unbroken. Camilla's voice slices through the despair, blasting through the crowd as she screams for everyone to lift their spirits and fight back. The legendary party Knacked Libel stands right at the edge of total destruction. The hard truth hits fast. The squad has already been wiped out in part, crushed by an unstoppable force. Knights and mages are crumpled and broken in the raging flood, claws and spells straining as they try over and over to rise against the unending attack. A colossal nightmare towers over them, drowning the survivors in a shadow that feels like death itself. Desperate defenders hurl their shields up and grip their staves tight, shaking as they struggle to keep the beast from breaking through. A flashback slams into place back then. They'd planned for the worst, fully convinced they could handle anything that came at them. Their training had to be enough, and their strength had to carry them, because whatever that dungeon hurled at them, they were going to survive it. But when the labyrinth finally showed its true, irrational nature, every single plan they had crumbled to dust. None of it mattered anymore. Then the brutal truth hits. Whoever got stuck fighting this floor boss first was basically doomed from the start, wiped clean before they could even react. In the rain-soaked memory, Camilla whips around to Vim, her face dead serious as she shouts his name. She snaps that he's not part of Knack Level yet, and that if he runs off alone, nobody's going to stop him or judge him. Vim freezes in disbelief as she asks for one last favor before he can even leave. Stunned by what that would mean, Vim stammers an apology and shuts it down. She refuses to let their talk turn into what she's implying. Camilla dug in her heels and insisted, saying her desperate plan lives or dies on his cooperation, even if it means swallowing the casualties. She shoots him a fearless look, vows she'll take down the monster on her own, and then demands he hand over every last drop of his enhancement power. Her word is law, no arguing. Everyone else has to split into squads of 3 and scatter fast, and she's not giving them a single inch of backup. Vim snaps into the truth that she's about to throw herself away, panics, and begs her to at least spill the escape route so everyone can get out. Camilla forces a shaky smile and vows to take full responsibility for Naklibel's safety. Vin pleads for her to quit talking like that, because he can't stomach the crushing weight of her self-sacrifice. She promises that if Vim joins the guild, Hyde, Mary, and Abel will lock in his future so hard that Vim just completely crumples, breaking down on the spot. Tears shimmered in Camilla's eyes as she solemnly invoked the contract, giving Vim's enchantment its final, official green light. Vim grits his teeth, tears pouring down his face as he fights to swallow the storm of raw emotional pain. Screaming through the agony, he slams the enchanted spell into action and pours every drop of magic straight into his captain. A blinding pillar of light explodes around Camilla the moment she shouts for every member's attention. She speaks with terrifying calm, telling the team no room for denial. These are going to be her final words. She yanks the moment into motion, ordering them to bolt as she clings to the bus and then drops the bombshell she's already handed their survival to Vim. With a soft smile, she grabs their hands and thanks her comrades for everything they've done side by side. Right now, a soldier finally understands what's unfolding, but it hits her too late, so she staggers forward, screaming her denial at the nightmare coming for her. Camilla stands alone in the dark, and her voice suddenly dies, snapping into a razor-sharp burst of static. She can't believe it. Her whole body feels weightless, like someone just yanked a massive burden off her shoulders. Her eyes snap wide with predator-sharp focus, locking onto the massive target in front of her. The colossal worm surges upward, its endless mouths and tentacles twisting with pure hunger, ready to tear its victim apart. Camilla strides up to the beast, calls it the ruler of this floor, and boldly announces, "I'm Camilla." With a ferocious glare blazing through the air, she vows with all due respect to reap its life right here, right now. She rockets ahead, her speed slicing through the water as she snaps the distance shut in a blink. A brutal shockwave detonates as she rips through the monster's defenses with pure, catastrophic force. The blast rips through the cavern walls, and the mighty beast staggers, stunned by the tiny warrior's brutal strike. Camilla barrels through the towering tentacles, and with every brutal slice, blood explodes into the air, while severed limbs scatter everywhere. She rockets forward with blistering speed, taunting the beast as she asks, almost like a dare, if it's finally time for her to unleash her big move. Magical energy hums around her as she grips a vertical tentacle and loudly declares the enhancement is pure top-tier quality. Her eyes lock and fierce and razor-focused, while her sword hacks through the monster's defenses like it's nothing. A colossal tentacle gets ripped free with surgical precision, and the brutal limb whips off into the dark. She rockets across the battlefield, so blazing fast that her own teammates can barely keep up with her every move. Camilla suddenly figures out she can climb endlessly with zero fatigue, and her mind reels at how effortlessly her body just moves. She snaps back to her old self and demands answers like, is she really the same person who used to be dull, lifeless, and totally apathetic? With every fresh strike, she can't help but wonder, has this unstoppable warrior finally become the real her? Her blade bites in hard, slicing deep into the monster's massive eye. A wild grin snaps onto her face as the truth hits she can go toe-to-toe with this boss. She rockets along the creature's body, swearing she'll slice every tentacle clean off and drive the final blow into its core. Grit and pure determination blaze across her face as she screams for even more speed and power. Even with her ridiculous surge in power, she's still stunned because the monster won't go down. Vim stares in awe, his heart hammering as he compares Camilla's raw, maximum strength to the legend of a mythical hero in full battle mode. He grabs onto his last shred of resolve, commits to her orders, and bets it all on the time she just handed him. Eyes locked on his device, he rapidly briefs the retreat assistants so the rest of the party can fall back. He slams the retreat protocol to life, his hand trembling just above the controls. Vim hauls his wounded comrade to safety, and as they hobble away from the battlefield, the man's gratitude hits him hard. Hyde Marie spots him closing in and blurts his name, relief flooding her voice. She stood right in front of him and spilled the truth she'd believed in him the whole time. Vim panted hard, sweat pouring off his face as he checked the area, no danger in sight. He lays out the brutal truth about the second recon team. Hans is safe, but the rest are fighting to hold on. With a sharp nod, he spins to go pushing Hyde Marie to get out fast. Hyde Marie freezes, eyes widening in confusion, as she spots Vim's footsteps dragging like something's wrong. Vim's breathing turns jagged. His mouth gapes open as exhaustion crashes over him. He suddenly feels his whole body go lead heavy, and he knows he's in serious trouble right this second. It doesn't feel like simple tiredness anymore. His legs turn into dead weights, refusing to lift. A shocking realization hits him hard as he finally names the exact feeling. A brutal hallucination of his abusive former leader haunts his mind, whispering, "You're not useful." His eyes bulge with terror as that brutal, familiar feeling from his days in Dragon's Wing hits him like a punch. He wrestles the panic down, gripping his thoughts and demanding, "Why am I even spiraling on this now when there's zero time to breathe?" Hyde Marie jolts and screams his name in pure panic as he slips, loses his balance, and starts to tumble. Camilla's memory hits him like a flashbang, screaming that falling back won't save him, not even a little. Her bright smile lights a fire under him, and he decides to go all in and do everything he can. He remembers her praising him, and those words hit like a punch, telling him his improvement was magnificent. He's baffled at why these memories are crashing back now, and he can't shake the sting of how kind she was. Images of her feeding him, pressing money into his hands, and showering him with praise crash through his thoughts, proving just how deeply she cared. Her voice slices through the fog, barking, "Focus, concentrate, and do exactly what I say." A countdown thunders inside his head, screaming at him to stop thinking and move, because when that timer slams into 1, there's no coming back. A chilling voice rattles through Vim's mind, barking that he has to obey Camilla's orders, then yanks his feet forward like he has no choice. The voice turns razor sharp, hurling insults at him and barking for him to look up because just standing there freezing like an idiot is not an option. Vim freezes in the pouring rain, trembling hard as the hallucinations of his past trauma crash in and take over. His voice sneers at his terrified face, laughing at how pathetic he looks in this moment. It viciously mocks his frozen smirk with the exact look he wore when he humiliated himself earlier right in front of trash leader Kronos. The hallucination keeps hammering him, demanding to know every thought in his head while he just stands there, totally helpless. Hyde's voice slices through the dark, and he yells at Mary to stop bolting and finally think things through. She demands to know what's going through his head, and she forces him to face the hesitation he's been hiding from. Right when it matters most, the voice comes for him, claiming he's doubting his comrades. Vim just freezes in the pouring rain, eyes stretched wide with terror, while his own inner war locks him in place. A massive worm monster thrusts up its disgusting head and lines up the crushing blow on the tiny humans beneath it. Camilla lunges straight at the beast, her sword screaming through the air as she chops off a monstrous tentacle in one deadly slash. Vim remembers the team's rallying cry and thinks, with our captain driving us forward, the impossible is ours to take. The soldiers roar as one, screaming that nobody quits, and their courage explodes sky high, even when the odds crush them. Camilla keeps the pressure on, her blade carving through the monster's flesh with ruthless, pinpoint precision. She whips through the air, juking every attack, then carves clean slashes through the creature's thick hide. A soldier yells that the enemy's assault has finally gone quiet, and he spots the tiny opening to hit back before it's gone. He bursts out screaming, yelling for everyone to grab the moment, because this is the perfect chance to flip the whole battle. A colossal shockwave detonates across the battlefield as a brutal, game-changing attack slams down. A battle-scarred warrior screams with raw determination, throwing every last ounce of strength into one final, desperate blow. The monster snaps back with a brutal technique, unleashing a human hunt terror meant to wipe out every attacker. A chilling voice rasps, "Good," as the trap snaps shut. Camilla's eyes snap wide with pure horror. She realizes she has to dodge the blow, but it's already too late. A colossal limb crashes into her, shattering her armor and spraying her blood through the air. The blast hits like a hammer, sending a roaring shockwave across the water and slamming everything in its way backward. Vim shrieks his captain's name in raw terror as he watches her get brutally struck down. Camilla gets slammed through the air like a rag doll, completely helpless as the blow's crushing power overwhelms her. Abel snaps awake to the danger, rockets forward, and roars as he throws his body straight into the flames. He snaps his shield up at the last second, bracing himself as the catastrophic impact comes crashing in, like it's about to crush every single one of them. Vim lunges to snag Camilla as she drops, skidding through the water and locking her safely in his arms. He snaps his head up in terror, yells her name again and again, as the monster's shadow caves in over them. Camilla gasps for breath, blood running down her mouth as she chokes out praise for Abel's reflex skill. Abel groans under the brutal pressure, but he won't fold. He clenches his will and vows to keep the defense standing, no matter what. Vim frantically scans his captain, screaming, "Can you hear me?" as the chaos swallows everything around them. His analysis slams down the brutal truth: her organs are wrecked, and her bones are shattered everywhere across her body. Camilla barely cracks her eyes open and whispers, "Who's still standing out there?" Despair crashes in. Turns out they never escaped, and the whole damn party is still trapped there with her. Resignation flashes across her face as she murmurs, "I see." Then she fully accepts how serious everything is. She lets out a soft laugh and points out, against all odds, nobody's died yet, then teases them as foolishly young. With her last ounce of strength, she shouts at the young and strong to sprint away, leaving every wounded burden of her behind. Vim freezes behind his fallen captain, jaw clenched, mumbling to himself until the truth finally hits him. This is really as desperate as it looks. He locks eyes on Camilla, kneeling on the ground, and he's frozen in shock because the strongest warrior he's ever known is finally broken and brought to defeat. Refusing to run, Vim snaps that if she still has her reinforcement magic, then he'll at least act as a meat shield covering her with his body. Grit and desperation choke his voice as he clenches his fist, swearing no, begging the world that he can't give up yet. Camilla lifts her eyes with a trembling little smile and, with strict politeness, gives his request the green light, pleading with Vim to let her have his reinforcement one last time. Vim's face twists with raw emotion. Rain and sweat stream off his chin as he grits his teeth and forces himself to beat his terror. He realizes with brutal self-loathing that his hesitation and doubt are quietly stealing the precious few seconds Camilla has left. A terrifying vision slams into him, screaming that if nobody acts right now, the whole group is going to get butchered right here. The party's warmth crashes into his thoughts, and it somehow makes him feel even more useless, like he doesn't deserve the kindness they keep giving a misfit like him. Tears burn at the corners of his eyes as he shakes with pure overwhelm, hit by the crushing thought that he doesn't belong in a party that good. He fires through a mental checklist of every flaw, convinced he's a socially awkward, miserable outcast who should have been tossed out years ago. He admits the truth ever since the start. It's been the Furbrand's strength and unity shielding him. That debt they keep dragging behind him crushes his soul so deep, he's convinced that even dying over and over wouldn't ever be enough to make him feel worth saving. Staring at his shaking hand, he can't believe it. Those incredible people took him in, saw past his flaws, and still treated him with real respect. Vim cuts open a channel to the whole team, and the moment his voice snaps with sudden clarity, hope ignites. There's still one last chance to survive. In the pouring rain, the survivors go rigid, stunned by the support mage's sudden, deadly serious announcement. Vim blurts out a desperate apology, his voice trembling but unbreakable, then declares he's about to flat out ignore the orders. His teammates stare in stunned silence, totally lost on what the timid enchanter could possibly be cooking up. Vim admits the road he's about to take probably isn't the smartest move on the board. Still, he insists this is the only shot he has left, so there's no backing out now. He has to act. He tells the rest of the party to snatch the opening and retreat right now. Then he stays behind, holding the boss off so they can get away. Vim slams the activation on a brutal spell called Hurts, and the stalemate protocol kicks in, locking the whole battlefield in place. As that magic energy swirls around him, he snaps at the confused crew, telling them he's about to unleash a deadly, specific debuff. He locks his sights on the Lord of the Levels, stares him down, and blurts out his wild plan. He's going after the floor boss alone. Camilla gazes up at him, stunned, and it clicks. She'd been right to sense that something truly special was always hiding inside him. Vim jabs a finger at his enemy, baffled. Why would he pull a move like that when he normally can't stand reckless choices? He replays Camilla's words in his head, this freedom to live his own way, and it finally clicks, like he's getting the real meaning of her advice for the first time. A real, confident grin bursts across his face as he fully commits to his choice and finally embraces the freedom that comes with it. With a wild, dramatic flourish, Vim slams his ultimate into motion, activating Transition Puppet Master and kicking off his solo war. Vim stood locked in the rain, frozen to the bone, while a voice snapped at him, calling out young Vim like his next move already decided everything. Massive, grotesque monsters surged up from the water, their bone-rattling screeches screaming through the air above one lone figure. Vim braces himself against the pounding rain, swearing with every breath that beating this enemy is his sworn duty. As he tramps toward the shoreline, a voice from his past keeps roaring his name through the storm. He turns back to the girl behind him and, in his own mind, confirms he's really leaving her silhouette, cutting stark against the light. She clenches her worries and wipes the sweat from her brow, then nods once quietly accepting his decision, like she's already bracing for impact. She points out that even with his never-ending complaints and doubts, the moment it matters, boldness always shows up in him shocking and unstoppable. Vim flashes a brave, tear-streaked grin, then says a final goodbye to Hidemari. She leans in and tells him, "You've got what it takes, you'll win," then pushes the fear right out of his head and begs him to stop worrying about the ending. Vim rubs his cheek with a sheepish grin, insisting he's only trying to buy time just like last time. He lets out a cocky boast, swearing he's way stronger than the old ruler of this floor. Hidemari freezes mid-step, her eyes snagging on something weirdly unexpected in his whole vibe. With a laugh to cut the tension, Vim admits his feelings are surging, and something about it makes him feel weird. She slices through his bravado, eyes locking on him as she asks, "Are you scared?" and points out how his legs are trembling. Vim admits that trembling is only natural when you're risking your life at the gambling table. She watches him like a hawk and realizes his trembling isn't fear at all. Vim snaps the conversation shut, swears there's zero time left, and storms off before anyone can even react. She claims she understands him deeper than he ever has because she can feel he hasn't truly faced who he really is yet. As she watches his retreating back fade away, she's sure of one thing. One day he'll finally see himself clearer than anyone on earth. Tears spill down her face as she finally confesses that, no matter what she swore, there are still parts of him she hasn't even figured out yet. In the middle of a dire moment, she can't believe he's laughing like nothing's wrong. The monstrous thing slithers and shifts, its grotesque flesh throbbing and twisting in nauseating detail. The enemy taunts their every move as the tentacles cut down earlier by their leaders start crawling back and ruining their momentum again. To make it even worse, the water levels surged up fast, and the whole battlefield got flipped on its head. A colossal beast towers over the surging water, and it crushes the horizon, yet a tiny figure stands there, refusing to back down against the sheer, impossible size. Vim spots the rising water and realizes it'll smash the brakes off the monster's speed, then panics, racing around like crazy, desperate to find any way to shut this whole nightmare down. The creature thrashes the water, sending out dark, low growls as it coils up for the kill. The air turns heavy as the beast grinds and shifts its massive bulk, the noise alone swallowing the silence. Vim clenched his fist hard, controlled his breathing, and braced himself to finally unleash his power. He steels his resolve and says, "As a support specialist, I'll push anything I touch to its absolute limit." A mind-bending diagram flashes on screen, showing down to every body part how hard reinforcement hits in each location. The easiest level focuses on strengthening bones and muscles, and usually you knock it out in just 1 or 2 treatments. To push past the limit, you've got to crank up blood flow and forge a stronger heart so fresh oxygen can flood every inch of you. But beyond the heart lies a forbidden realm, an unseen core where only a chosen few can even strengthen themselves. At the very peak of difficulty sits the unknown level, the one that directly supercharges your brain. The story whips back to a memory Vim hunched over a desk, studying like his life depended on it, burning through the night. He tears through the text in pure frustration, and the worst part hits him. There's barely any info on brain strengthening at all. The ancient tome spells it out. No matter how many attempts there were, nobody ever managed to truly strengthen the brain. The warning screams that boosting processing speed in the consciousness center could skyrocket combat power, but the risk is terrifyingly high. It basically says, if you're weak, self-improvement won't save you, because boosting someone else's brain is nearly impossible. Vim can't help but wonder, would anyone really dare to risk their life just to try that brutal technique? He locks eyes on the horizon, silent, but weighed down by the thoughts grinding inside his head. A flashback hits someone far stronger, rips him away from the battlefield, then steps in, apologizing for Vim's weakness even as they take control of the fight. Alone at his desk, Vim hunches over his research with wild desperation, clawing for the strength he can't stop chasing. He reaches out and realizes this cursed path is his last remaining lifeline. That technique is called the Puppet Master. It lets the user control their body like a doll's strings. A piercing crack echoes through his mind as the activation process kicks off deep inside him. He faces the terrifying risk head-on, knowing that if he cranks his brain's processing speed one notch too far, it'll choke completely and slam him into unconsciousness. He turns inward and suddenly becomes painfully aware of his own consciousness. He hones his senses with razor precision, firing off rapid questions and answers to himself until his mind clicks perfectly into place. He carefully crunches the numbers, tweaks the multiplier to the very edge of safety right before an overload hits. The final value gets pushed up by a tiny microscopic bump, just 1,000,001 times his usual capacity. He grimly accepts the fact that the side effects will probably fry his brain, but it's the absolute limit. The furthest he can go. His mind skyrockets through wild theories, and he's sure self-direction in this state is totally possible. Reality snaps back, and a giant tentacle slams down to crush him to the ground. The Puppet Master technique kicks in, and a manic, breathless laugh erupts right alongside it. Vim tightens his grip on his weapon the second those deadly appendages slam in from every direction. Massive tentacles slash through the air with ruthless speed and crushing power. A chaotic storm of punches and kicks crashes into his spot, blasting debris into the air and swallowing him from view. With that ruthless speed crashing into reality, he flashes a wild thought. Did I already die? Suddenly, everything clicks. His senses sharpen and the terrifyingly fast world grinds to a crawling halt. Vim casually reclines, and those huge attacks suddenly look slow as he slips every single one like it's nothing. He rockets onto the writhing tentacles, sprinting along them with impossible agility and breakneck speed. Spinning through the air upside down, he slips through a deadly maze of flesh like he's totally unbothered. He rockets along the creature's limb, streaking past in a blur until he finally closes in on the main body. Closing in on the monster's core, he tightens his grip and readies a decisive blow. With total focus, he slips past the last defenses like a blade cutting through with razor-sharp precision. Bystanders freeze on the spot, mouths hanging open as the impossible spectacle burns to life right in front of them. A streak of motion tears through the air as he keeps hammering with relentless fury. He glides over the creature's hide, every move slick and perfect as he gears up for the next strike. He finally unveils what his power really is. Then, bam! He triggers a sudden boost that multiplies his physical stats by 20. With his senses turned to max, everything feels like it's standing still, so the enemy's moves look painfully, ridiculously slow. Every single fiber in his body snaps to life the moment he gives the order, and he rockets forward like he's unstoppable. He charts the best possible route and nails the exact moment to strike with knife-sharp, computer-level precision. His perception shatters reality itself, letting him read every twitch and muscle fiber twitching in the span of 1,000th of a second. He realizes the strong train never lets up, pushing them to win again and again 10 out of 10 times. Still, the weak have to pour every last drop of energy into chasing that one in 100,000 stroke of pure coincidence. He finally realizes that sitting around and hoping success drops out of nowhere just won't cut it. He insists he has to wrestle that miracle into reality and drag success into existence with nothing but his own will. He unleashes the full might of his technique, then rockets upward to dodge the final blow. Vim rockets across the shifting ground, and you realize he didn't just brace himself, he supercharged the elasticity in his ligaments so they can scream under the crushing strain. Dozens of razor spikes crash down from above, pinning him inside a deadly box of razor-sharp darkness. With a crazed grin, he hacks his way through the chaos, forcing his legs to keep moving as he hunts for that one in 100,000 miracle. He slips under that crushing strike with razor focus, knowing one wrong move spells death 1,000 times over before he finally claws his way onto the only path that keeps him alive. His laughter booms eerily over the water, and he glides with an unnatural grace that leaves everyone on the shore frozen in stunned silence. Camilla stares in total disbelief, her brain refusing to accept the insane agility unfolding right in front of her eyes. She can't even keep up with his moves. Then he suddenly explodes upward into the air with a leap so powerful it feels like the laws of physics just gave up. She realizes he used a move meant to blow joints apart, then somehow snuffed the jump's momentum by snapping his strike backward with surgical timing. She can't stop wondering if that kind of feat is truly a one-of-a-kind miracle, something only his brutally stronger body could pull off. Cold horror flashes across her face as she realizes his movement has shattered every limit a human could possibly break. As she stares at the tiny figure going toe-to-toe with the Leviathan, everything clicks. She finally sees just how far Vim's transformation has gone. Vim cackles in Death's face, screaming his twisted new philosophy like, "Live exactly how you want." He celebrates the impossible. He willed a 1-in-a-million miracle into existence, beating the astronomical odds with pure, unbreakable determination. Joy hits like lightning for him. Then it shatters the second he understands this miracle still can't keep him from dying. He figures out his own doom with chilling precision, knowing that even a tiny delay of milliseconds is enough to smash his bones to pieces. With grim calculations in his head, he taunts the beast anyway. Sure, his boosted speed will give him the one edge he needs to win. Suddenly, the creature strikes back, hurling glowing magical glyphs that snap into place around its massive body. Vim's eyes bulge with pure terror when he realizes the beast is unleashing magic, one card he never saw coming. A massive slab of magical energy carves straight through the battlefield, slicing the air with unstoppable fury. Pure instinct kicks in. Vim throws himself out of the way as dark energy surges in, trying to erase him in one terrifying instant. He barely dodges the next blow, twisting mid-air so that huge limb never manages to crush him. He gasps in pure shock. He just realized the monster is so ruthless it'll cut off its own tentacles just to land the blow. The creature's destructive magic launches the severed limb straight at him like a deadly projectile. Vim whirls through the non-stop assault, gritting his teeth as he snaps that the enemy won't even give him a single breath of peace. Rage blazes behind his eyes as he swallows the crushing onslaught, swearing he'll dodge every single thing that gets thrown at him. Vim rockets through the frenzied maze of bone-white tendrils, his silhouette streaking past danger as he threads the deadly battlefield. He lashes back with a feral scream, his blade blazing as he fights for his life against that monstrous, colossal thing. Twisting through the air on impossible flips, Vim darts through danger with a fearless kind of grace that makes your stomach drop. Down below, the knights can't even blink, stunned stiff, sweating buckets as they watch the impossible unfold right in front of them. None of them can even wrap their minds around how Vim is still standing. Watching his impossible moves against that monster has their brains spinning in disbelief. The narration lays it out brutally clear. Vim has to take on the top of the hierarchy alone, with no backup and no mercy. Vim flashes a wild grin as he dives into an ultra-high-speed fight, where every single millisecond can mean life or death. The crowd can only whisper in disbelief, totally blown away by the jaw-dropping skill right in front of them. Vim tears into the beast's huge limbs with a non-stop storm of strikes, his every move a blur of brutal, dead-on precision. Riding that momentum, Vim surfs along the monster's massive tentacles, using its own body like a highway. He darts through the blasting water jets with freakish reflexes, and the crowd erupts in pure disbelief, screaming at how impossible his agility looks. Vim hangs in the air for a heartbeat, perfectly weightless, hovering beside the towering bulk of the hierarch. He blazes forward again, turning into nothing but a streak of pure speed slicing through the dark. Just like that, the whole battle flips in an instant, and it knocks the young fighter flat, yanking a sharp gasp out of him before he can even react. Vin suddenly feels his mind and body snap out of sync, and all he can think is, what the hell is he doing right now in this eerie fugue state? The fight turns into a blur. He pulls off multiple insane maneuvers in the blink of a heartbeat. Vim snaps to danger in an instant. He has to bolt right now, or that giant limb will slam down and crush him on the spot. He grips life by the thinnest thread, chasing a 1 in 10,000 miracle just to stay one step ahead of death. Riding the creature's hide all the way down, Vim's eyes widen because even with his body battered by the fall, nothing inside him has been torn up yet. He rides the monster's shockwave like a surfboard, grabbing that wild, chaotic energy and blasting straight to safety. With his time running out, Vim panics and scrambles to escape as the impossible truth crashes down on him. He rockets out of the way the instant a colossal tentacle crashes down, smashing the exact spot he was standing on just milliseconds ago. Vim touches down safely, stunned that his body just carried out every frantic move his mind cooked up in that split second. A strange rush surges through him. His mind stays icy calm while his body goes wild on pure adrenaline. Vim jolts out of his battle trance, realizes he let the hype get out of hand, and freezes staring at everything in stunned disbelief. With a grim shake of his head, he pushes the thought into his bones. Buy time right here, or those other Furbran will die for sure. Feeling guilty for enjoying himself, Vim shakes it off and locks back in on the mission, refusing to let that rush throw him off. He can't shake the twisted thrill he felt while dancing on the edge of death, and it freaks him out that he'd even enjoy it. The more danger closes in, the more his heart starts racing because that realization hits hard. It thrills him and terrifies him at the same time. Vim can't shake the feeling that he's been waiting forever for this deadly moment, like a premonition just snapped into reality. From far away, the soldiers kept staring and whispering, demanding to know was Vim still alive after that total, catastrophic hit. A colossal hierarch hangs in the water, its many limbs writhing and sliding with a terrifying, ominous rhythm. The soldiers stare, totally baffled, as the creature's body starts to warp and they blurt out, "What the heck is it doing?" A battle-scarred knight's gut drops as he realizes the beast is mid-transformation, and it's terrifying. Weird floating sounds drift through the air as the creature's body breaks every rule of nature. Vim gapes upward in total disbelief, sweat pouring down his face as the whole mess spirals out of control. A huge ring of flesh rips free and hovers above the main body, and Vim can't help but stare, stunned at the magic behind it. The knight swears the hierarchs always keep an ace hidden, and then boom, he drops the horrifying truth about the enemy they're about to unleash. The veteran knight clenches his jaw and admits this horrifying transformation is a nightmare that keeps coming back, because the last hierarchy pulled the very same move. He realizes this brutal transformation isn't strength at all, it's pure panic. The monster finally shoved into a corner with no way out. Massive, pale tentacles slam down across the battlefield, ripping the land into a wild, flesh-choked maze. The hierarch finally shows its real form, an awful, bloated god crowned in writhing tendrils, while a glowing symbol pulses like a warning in the dark. Vim wipes the sweat off his face, snarls a vicious grin, and realizes the second round of this deadly game is finally underway. A commander rips into a scream that no one can forecast the next attacks, then orders every youngster to bolt out of the area right now. He zeroes in on Abel and barks, "Leave your post, give the veterans the defense." Abel trembles with fear, but he won't bolt. He stammers that, as a shield commander, he's got to stay put and knock back any stray shots. The commander glares at him, stunned beyond belief, because he can't wrap his head around why that terrified boy refuses to back down. Abel clenches his shield, sure that somewhere in all this crushing despair, hope has to be hiding. A seasoned knight flashes a reassuring grin at the boy and tells him, "Stop spiraling about dying, lock in, and just fight." The hierarch's floating appendages start twitching and softly buzzing, and you can feel it. This is the moment the next assault kicks off. Clinging to that jagged rock face, Vim stares at the floating organs and feels dread claw at his gut. Something is very, very wrong. Then it clicks. Those aren't just random parts. They're support organs built to unleash attacks from above, which means dodging by jumping is basically off the table. Teeth clenched, Vim decides his current pace isn't enough, so he digs deeper and forces himself past the breaking point. He slams a button and boom powers surge through him, cranking his physical strength up by 50 times in a blink. His eyes bulge as he strains his sight beyond what's possible, desperate to soak up every single detail of the battlefield. Vim dives headfirst into processing, literally everything, snatching data even from places he can't see and locking it into his memory. The sheer blast of information crashes into him so hard he feels like he's about to black out. Countless swirling magic circles erupt around the hierarch's arms, crackling with power as a crushing magical bombardment builds to the brink of release. The air shudders with raw power as the beast blasts its full arsenal, unleashing twin beams at the exact same time. Water jets blast through the air, and magical projectiles rain down non-stop, turning the battlefield into a bullet hell, where there's nowhere to run and death comes for every last one. Soldiers scrambled for their lives as those massive beams tore through the water and stone around them. Vim barrels through the chaos, grinning like a lunatic, shouting in pure disbelief while he drives through a storm that shouldn't even exist. He breaks into pure exhilaration. He can see everything, and his senses snatch up every bit of chaos in one wild sweep. He spots attacks from the blind spots and follows the spark of reflections on the water, catching even the shadowy tentacle hints lurking beneath. His mind races through the unseen, clocking down every threat: 377 tentacles, 190 blades, 55 lances, and 1,020 bullets. With godlike accuracy, Vim realizes he can map the exact path of every projectile flying straight for him. He slips through the deadly barrage, flowing between the massive blows like he's one heartbeat ahead of disaster. Vim cackles like a villain, praising the hierarch for being razor sharp. He never throws useless attacks. He just burns through everything. Feeling untouchable, he soaks in the thrill of mapping the whole battlefield in his head, 360 degrees. No blind spots. A surge of terror hits him like lightning because he realizes that even a single microsecond of straying means instant death. He can't help wondering if that death-hunting impulse was always buried in him, because the moment he negotiates with the hierarch, his pulse goes wild. Vim bursts out that this is pure joy. He's finally hit his peak performance at last. Deadly tendrils whip through the air at breakneck speed, slashing everything in a chaotic swirl of destruction. Vim barely dodges a killing strike, and in the next heartbeat he realizes he almost ate that attack straight in the face. With the support fire cut off, a calm voice turns to Hidamari and thanks her for everything she's done. In the middle of all that chaos, a desperate cry cuts through and begs Hans for any chance, any way out. The team's stuck in a brutal dilemma: how to back Vim while stray bullets rip through the chaos, and they have to fight to keep the injured alive. With the fight raging at full power, even the idea of offering support gets thrown into doubt. A storm of bone-crushing hits crashes down like thunder, and the battlefield roars with the deafening smack of every impact. Camilla realizes jumping into a fight, moving that fast, is basically a death wish. She'd just get in the way and slow them down. Orders snap through the air: defend at all costs and shove back retreat as far as you can. As soon as the Great Curtain kicks off, the whole crew starts a frantic, no time to waste evacuation. A thunderous shockwave explodes outward, flashing light across the leader's silhouette as the chaos rages in front of him. As the fight rips forward, Camilla flashes back to Vim's wild promise he'd beat the floor boss, no matter what. She finally admits she actually thought he was just bluffing, like he'd never really take the monster down on his own. Vim doesn't just keep up with the boss. She's the one forcing it back, corner by brutal corner, and leaving her stunned. Realizing the fight has jumped way past their limits, Camilla turns to Vim and gives him her total trust. Deep in the zone, Vim uncovers a hidden side of himself, one that craves the rush of cutting through everything with zero hesitation. He surges forward with ruthless momentum, and his body turns into a blur of pure violence. Even with the attacks flying at him, Vim finally realizes the nightmare he's stuck in a stalemate, and he still hasn't landed a single hit on the main body. Pushing his thoughts into place, he realizes he can't risk a fight that drags on. He hasn't got the stamina for that. With every brutal hit coming at him, he throws his whole body into dodging and digs deeper in his mind, forcing himself to think way past his limits. He feels a tough shell trapped inside the black mist, and that's when it hits him. Something about it is wrong, like it shouldn't exist. Spotting the target, he decides smashing the hidden core open is the only way to win. A path snaps into his mind, some cold, half-understood math at work, but one thing hits him instantly. It's the straight shot, the shortest way to the boss. A spark of inspiration detonated inside his mind, blasting the path ahead into the light. A perfect solution snaps into place as probabilities collide and parallel events swirl together in his mind. Now it all rides on whether he can stay locked on that planned route. No mistakes, no slip-ups. He snaps back to himself and realizes he's been shaking with terror since the very first moment. Seeing that miraculous road to victory, it finally clicks. He realizes what it feels like to be one step from crushing triumph. Even with a 90 chance of dying, he's dead certain this version of him can beat the odds. He turns the fear of suicide into pure adrenaline, then laughs through a grin at how wildly absurd it all is. He rockets forward at blinding speed, and the wind pressure twists his face out of shape. The massive boss snaps into action, its tentacles whipping through the air to cut him off mid-strike. To everyone's jaw-dropping shock, Wim suddenly disappears gone without a trace. Wim freezes mid-step, baffled right when he looks up. The rain just stops out of nowhere. He realizes he didn't just stop moving. He blasted up so high, he's floating above the clouds like they can't touch him. Realizing the enemy's coming after him, even down here, he slams into the descent and cranks the speed even higher. As he drops headfirst, the world goes dead silent, like even sound got erased. In that eerie silence, he can't shake the feeling that he's the last living thing left in the entire world. As he closes in on the target, a wild rush crashes over him, like he's got total control of the whole space. Magic circles blaze to life as he charges straight for the impact point, smashing through with pure, devastating force. Wim snaps into the truth. His foe has thrown up a barrier in a last-ditch panic, trying to stop him from plunging any farther. With his body screaming at the edge of collapse, he forces every last ounce of strength to break through no matter what. He surges forward, cranking his speed higher and higher until he becomes a living cannonball, blasting straight through everything in his path. His eyes snap onto the target, pinning down the core hidden deep inside that swirling black mist. He drives straight into the objective, smashing it with a blinding burst of raw power. The whole world buckles into white static and glitches out, and there's Wim, just him standing alone in a dead, silent void. Confusion hits hard as he scans the empty space, completely lost and not knowing where he even is. A weird, egg-shaped pod splits open right in front of him, and a thick, dark goo pours out and splashes onto the ground. The shell finally shatters wide open, and a bottomless darkness gapes from inside. From the wreckage, a glitching hand shoots upward, clawing at the air like something from a nightmare. Distorted voices ricochet through the emptiness, sounding almost like speech, yet nothing ever clicks into words. A colossal shadow hangs over him as a voice hammers out cryptic symbols so alien it scrambles every last bit of human understanding. Even though the words make zero sense, Wim doesn't feel a shred of malice. He can tell the entity's not here to hurt him. The vision snaps out of existence the same way it arrived, fading into nothing, with nothing more than a quiet, simple nod. Wim snaps back to reality, crumples to the ground, and gasps for air as exhaustion slams into him all at once. The giant floor boss behind him collapses in a thunderous heap, slamming into the water with a violent, earth-shaking splash. He finally realizes he pulled it off, saved everyone, and the sight of his Russian comrade's joy hits him like a wave. His strength finally gives out. He tumbles forward and smashes face first into the water with a splash. Alarm screams burst from the guild as everyone panics and shouts his name at the top of their lungs. As his consciousness slips away, he clings to one sweet thought. The relentless rain has finally quit. The expedition ends with 106 injured, and then the final report hits like a miracle. Not a single casualty. They burst onto the 50th floor and gawk upward at a massive staircase, guarded on both sides by eerie serpent statues. A gigantic amphibian monster looms right in front of them, staring the intruders down with murder in its eyes as it coils to strike. The giant frog whips its tongue like a whip, but the vanguard slips aside with slick, practiced precision. Nicholas bursts into the opening and hurls her massive hammer down with a roar, driving it straight for the beast. Her erupting crush rockets forward, and she smashes the monster's jaw into the ground with a devastating crash. While the beast tries to scramble back, Malice snaps off a binding spell, pinning its limbs to the floor so it can't move a muscle. A blazing torrent crashes down on the trapped monster, while one party member hurls a wall of flame, scorching it to the brink. The creature thrashes in agony as flames swallow it alive, pinned down by magical restraints with no way out. A blazing swordsman rockets through the smoke, and with one smooth, furious slash, he cuts the burning beast clean into 3 perfect pieces. Blood bursts across Kronos' cheek as he grins, savoring the perfectly clean kill. With the battle finally over, the party rushes in on Kronos, singing his praises for that ice-cold execution and rock-solid skill. Once Nicola healed up, Dragonwing dove right back into the dungeon, and their teamwork clicked into place so smoothly it felt unreal. Even while she's stuck juggling the map and random chores, the elf can't deny it somehow their combat coordination has skyrocketed. Even with their success, doubt gnaws at her as she studies how fast they've surged forward. She admits that skimming through this floor like it's nothing proves the trio has real, undeniable potential. Their reckless bravery flips the whole fight their way, proving just how raw and unstoppable their talent really is. She coldly shuts it down, no matter how talented they are. This party's got no future. The Dragonwing chasing frontline glory is gone for good. But this mid-level party, they've still got everything they need to tough it out and keep living. She admits it might come off rude, then hits the truth hard. They just don't have the raw power needed to crush a floor boss. The story cuts to the Dragonwing party house. Warm food is waiting for them right after the expedition. They all dig in, but nobody talks, just the sharp clink of forks and knives tapping plates in that crushing, awkward silence. As they dig in, tension crashes through the room, and everyone keeps their eyes locked away while they chew in awkward silence. Cracking the silence, Kronos leans in and asks, "Did Nicola cook?" Then throws her a side-eye as he points out she forgot to yank the carrot stems again. Nicola stumbles and blushes, then blurts out non-stop apologies for her clumsiness, while everyone else tries to shrug it off with a laugh. The laughter cuts off instantly, and an awkward silence crashes in one member, flat out refuses to eat the stem, even as Kronos pushes them to try. The elf feels it in his chest. This atmosphere is suffocating, and nobody in sight knows how to crack a smile. Right then, Kronos snaps to attention, suddenly remembering the exact topic he'd been desperate to bring up with the group. With a relaxed grin, he leans in and asks the girls what they think about recruiting new members to boost their numbers. He jolts them with the reminder that they're still stuck in a rank party and admits the truth. The rehab made him totally forget. If they put out a recruitment notice, they could slip right back to the front lines without breaking a sweat, riding on their high status. Nicola freezes on the spot, then blurts out half terrified, half determined, how many new people he plans to squeeze into their close-knit circle. When Kronos pitches recruiting a couple dozen people, the girls freeze and stare, each one looking worried in their own way. The elf can't stop stressing over the chaos of vetting all these strangers, especially when her whole party is made up of women. Unaware of the growing tension, Kronos whips around to ask Malus what she thinks, and it totally catches her off guard. He leans in, waiting for your answer, his smile bright and innocent, as curiosity crackles in his eyes. Watching them talk, the elf clocks Kronos' sneaky habit. He quietly steers every word, like it's all part of his plan. Malus stammers that she might feel more at ease if the new recruits were girls, but she insists boldly, even if it doesn't fully sound certain that she's okay with Kronos being the only guy. The elf clocks the painfully awkward exchange and instantly sees it. This romantic tension is just the next crack in their already broken group dynamic. A messy love triangle explodes. Both girls crave Kronos, and somehow he feels the same way about both of them. Nicholas slumps in silent panic, terrified that if more women crash the party, Kronos' eye might drift right off him and onto the newcomers. Sophia's face twists with worry. And yeah, it's totally no shock. She looks this troubled. Seeing Sophia's distress, Kronos leans in and demands to know if something's wrong. Sophia blurted out her worries. Money was tight. And with zero experience, how were they even going to handle a roster that big? A heavy silence crashes onto the dining table as her words finally hit home. Kronos brushed her fears aside, snapping that if she truly believed the plan couldn't work, she should have spoken up right from the start. Sophia's flustered. His aggressive pushback shuts her down, and she stammers out a defense she can't quite put into words. Kronos swears the floor boss's reward is so huge that money instantly stops being a problem. Panic crashes over Sophia as she frantically slams through her mind. Terrified, she forgot to add that one crucial detail to her reports. Spying her hesitation, Kronos invites her to a private meeting in his room if she's finding the words hard to say. Sophia tells everyone that Wim's own records make it crystal clear without the right proofs and approval, they can't go through with the subjugated boss. Internally screaming, she realizes horrified that she just made a colossal administrative screw-up. A piercing voice snaps in and orders her never, ever say that man's name again. Sophia shoots off an apology, insisting that from what that person's records show, all the required documents were supposedly sent. The whole crew lands on the same conclusion: that guy totally botched the paperwork, so that's why the reward money still hasn't shown up. Even as blame gets tossed around, Sophia insists that approval should have shown up by now, no matter what went wrong. She tries to push back the expansion plan, knowing their situation is still a total mystery. The tension snaps as Kronos shoots to his feet in a rage, wrecking the entire meal. Clenching his teeth, he spits a curse at that bastard for dragging them into trouble all over again. He screams that Dragonwing is the one who crushed the 97th floor boss, then fires off a furious demand for how long Wim plans to keep blocking their path. Sophia drops her gaze with a defeated sigh, accepting that this twisted story is the brutal truth and it won't bend. She seethes and realizes this party is just people nursing bruises, only now they're using Wim's Strauss as the convenient villain to blame. The story swings into a hush-filled room, and a chandelier sways overhead, casting everything in soft, eerie light. Wim groggily cracks his eyes open, and boom, he's staring up at a bed that feels completely foreign. A girl perched by his bedside spots his eyes open, then blurts his name to get his attention. She beams at him with a bright morning hello, but he groans through the pain like it's getting worse by the second. She snaps at him to stay still and keep his mouth shut, because his throat and body are battered to the breaking point. Confusion crashes over Wim, and he scrambles to remember where he is or what on earth just happened. Memories crash back into him, and he blurts out right away, "Is everyone okay?" The girl snaps at him for pushing himself too hard right after she warned him not to. Wim snaps to it. He's in a hospital, and he scrambles to figure out how he got there. She leans in and tells him the worst is over. Sure, the injuries are serious, but nobody's life is hanging by a thread. She blurts out that he's been out cold for 5 whole days. With a warm, radiant smile, she praises him for crushing it out there. Relief crashes over Wim, and he blurts out a tearful thanks to the heavens. Tears burst into his eyes as he commits saving everyone matters more than his own life. The girl leans out and waves someone over, saying Camilla wants to be called the moment he wakes up. A hand slides the door open with care, and that familiar voice suddenly calls out, "Wim." Camilla storms into the room and smirks, taunting him. "So did you have fun with that reckless stunt of yours?" Blazing red in the face, Wim snaps his eyes away and admits, yeah, he liked it just a tiny bit. Camilla flashes a warm smile at his honest answer. Wim jerks awake in bed as the door creaks open and a familiar face steps into the doorway. To his absolute shock, guild leader Camilla drops into a deep bow in her full armor, head lowered in a show of pure, overwhelming respect. Blushing hard from the sudden stiff formality of his superior, Wim wildly waves his hands and practically pleads with her to finally lift her head. A gentle voice slips through her hair as she offers her thanks with pure, heartfelt sincerity. She straight up admits that right now, all she's got are words of gratitude. And no matter how much she tries, she can't even imagine how she'll ever repay him. Tears gush down her cheeks as she keeps thanking everyone over and over, her composure snapping in half with pure, overwhelming relief. Wim stammered without a clue, totally blindsided by the stoic leader's sudden, gut-punch, emotional outburst. He rubs his cheek, mortified, then humbly blurts that he's just relieved they all made it back safe. Camilla gapes at him, stunned that after risking his life, his first thought still rockets straight to keeping everyone else safe. Overwhelmed by emotion, her whole body spasms the closer she gets to snapping. She couldn't hold back. She lunged forward, screaming, and slammed him into a bone-crushing embrace. Wind sucked in a breath too late because getting hugged by a guy in metal plate armor didn't feel like comfort. It hurt like hell. As Wim's body turns blue under the chokehold, a loud, boisterous laugh blasts from the doorway the moment someone sees him fighting for breath. The rest of the guild rushes into the room, shouting that the whole crew is here to roll up and visit their hero. Total disregard for his situation, this huge group barrels onto the bed, piling into the hug and pinning him even harder beneath their combined weight. Pinned beneath a mountain of bodies, Wim chokes out a ragged cry as his life is slowly crushed out of him. The pile keeps ballooning as more members dive in, totally ignoring that the patient is still barely on the mend. Wim shrieks he's about to die the moment he spots Abel charging in, and it hits him. His own friends are out there trying to kill him. The nurse snaps into action and screams the mob back with pure fury, while the other girls howl that it's unfair they're not next. She scrambles to restore order and snaps at them, warning that it's way past time to stop before they leave permanent damage behind. Watching the chaos unfold, she tightens her grip and grimly realizes Wim won't last much longer if this keeps up. Suddenly, Camilla's voice slices through the chaos as she screams for everyone to snap to attention. No self-awareness at all, she orders the whole group to snap their physical contact quick before the injured hero's pain gets any worse. A guild member with dead eyes preached pure peace, then got called out because her bone-crushing hug to prove the point is the exact opposite of what she claims, and she still flatly denies it. They snapped everything into place, built a strict rule everyone got exactly one chance to step up and thank him. A line snaps into place in an instant, and one by one the members step forward, tears spilling as they pour out heartfelt thanks to the person who saved them. Wim gives an awkward grin as he shakes hands, then quickly insists no heroics, just doing what an adventurer's supposed to do. One guy tries to hang back and squeeze in a few more words, but the system rips in pure efficiency and they drown him out, shouting him down to get moving. The assembly line barrels on at full speed. Everyone shoots off quick thanks, then gets shoved toward the next person as the pace never lets up. Chaos crashes back in the second someone tries to squeeze into the line again, and a furious shove of words cuts them down because they already had their turn. Chaos erupts over whether those moments even count, and his members are left clawing for just one more second with him. Camilla clung to the strict time limits, snapping that if they dragged it out any longer, their own excitement would literally end up killing their savior. A calm voice cuts through the chaos, telling them to drop it for today and walk away. The nurse yanks Camilla away by her collar and snaps at the leader that she's not just anyone, she's an intensive care patient who has to get back to her room. All alone in the hush after everything, Wim lets out a soft laugh, totally caught off guard by how absurd and how warm his comrades are. The nurse walks back in, softly telling him the storm's over and it's time to rest, and he nods gratefully, like he's finally exhaling. As he sinks back into the pillows, the room's silence hits him like a wave, and all the praise from today comes flooding back. He can still feel the awe in their voices when they told him they'd never seen anyone fight with skills that insane. The girl's heartfelt thanks for saving her life keeps echoing in his head like it happened a second ago. As he finally drifts off, the whole room's tearful cries of gratitude wash over him, and the guilt inside him loosens into pure, peaceful calm. All alone in the hush after the visit, Wim breaks into a real smile, admitting to himself that their gratitude hit harder than anything, and it made him truly happy. He grips the sheets with both hands, overwhelmed by the rush of finally feeling useful and by the heartfelt thanks that comes back to him right after. Feeling Camilla's strength settle his nerves, he finally makes the call. Now it's time to officially join the Knacked Libel Guild. His work gets smashed by loud voices outside the door, and it's clear those troublemakers have finally shown up. He finally throws up his hands and admits it. This world is packed with every kind of person imaginable. His thoughts slip into a darker lane, and he starts comparing the gratitude he got today to the people he used to thank back then. Clutching his chest as sharp pain explodes, he snaps at himself in pure panic and slams the brakes on that whole line of thinking. Even as kindness cracks through for him, his traumatic memories slam the door again, and despair swallows him whole. Hit with a wave of emotion, he realizes he can't hold back the bitterness anymore. It just spills out of him. He frantically wrestles with his own mind, trying to shove those dark thoughts down, even as resentment claws at him from the inside. Standing in dead silence outside the door, the nurse watches with a heavy face, fully sensing the hero's pain he's burying deep inside. Pain. In a glittering office, a trembling report gets handed to a top official, confirming that Wim Strauss has finally awakened. The official hit the whole city with the breaking news. NACT Level allegedly put the 98th floor boss under his thumb. He spots the buzz among the journalists, rumors tearing through the crowd that this temporary grand member is the real one who slaughtered the beast. His sharp gaze pins his subordinate, and he growls that the guild's job is to dig up the truth of this whole mess. His subordinate breaks into a cold sweat, then nervously nods and agrees with his superior's judgment. A tiny amused chuckle slips out of the guildmaster, cracking his usual stone-still stoicism. His aide can't stop talking about how wild it is to see him this fired up over just a simple investigation. They announce they're heading to the hospital, and they can't help but wonder this lucky hero is about to run headfirst into the guildmaster, face to face. As they head out, the master leans in and urges them to take this moment to dig into the shady 97th floor incident tied to Dragon Wayne.